Hack the planet, crashes our hero, took down the stock market with ones and zeros.
We're talking about hackers.
I don't want to see an ordinary film. I want to see something extraordinary.
Your sacrifice completes my sanctuary of 1,000 testicles.
You ever feel as if your mind had started to erode?
Let's rock indeed. Welcome to 1000 Wives of Weird, the podcast, a discussion of weird movies. I'm Billy Martell. With me, as always, is
Brad Hefner.
And today we have a special guest, friend of the show and fan of the show, Stephen Collier.
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
And just
it's an honor to be here. Long-time listener.
Well, it's awesome to have you here. And just like when we've had our previous guest Spring on in the past, Stephen has brought a weird and wacky movie for us to discuss. Today we're talking about the cult 90s, what would you call it?
A manifesto! A manifesto!
A manifesto, hackers. Just a very unique movie starring Johnny Lee Miller,
Angelina
Jolie,
Matthew Lillard, Fisher Stevens, not in brownface.
Yeah, for once in his life.
And Billy Crystal. They call each other.
They're the brownface gang.
They call each other up. They're like, "Hey, do you want to get an entire pizza each?" And they go to the pizza pie place,
right,
in blackface. Fisher's in brown. He prefers brown. But yeah, they just each eat a whole pizza.
Right, of course.
And then the cops get called, but they get off because they're famous.
Right, yeah. Josh Gad wasn't cool enough to join the brown.
Josh Gad is in yellow face.
Oh,
he's
God.
Outside the pizza pie shop, snout pressed against the glass, just looking at these two having a grand old time.
Oh, God. All right, so
talking about hackers.
So we're talking about hackers. Stephen, this is your movie on the show. Giving the most brief, plot light, spoiler free description of the story. This is a movie that goes in depth into the seedy underbelly of the hacker subculture as it absolutely, completely, and totally existed.
Is there a question in there?
In 1995. We follow a young super genius as he becomes part of a gang of hackers and the trials and tribulations of coming of age in a world of being a cyberpunk.
I don't know
in
that
a non-cyberpunk world.
I don't know that I could summarize that better than the question. And I don't mean to use hyperbole, but I firmly believe Hackers is where the Western canon peaked.
So, yeah, Stephen, what about Hackers, again, without giving spoilers, what about Hackers really appealed to you? What made you want to bring it on the show? And would you recommend it? And if so, to whom and why?
And, why do you love it?
Yeah.
If you like joy, if you like cinema at all, every frame is a painting. You owe it to yourself to watch Hackers. I think that Hackers, I think this is the time to watch Hackers. 94 was not the time to watch Hackers. I think absolutely 2022 is where this experience has ripened. It's got sort of a fragrant bouquet to it, which is really going to offer a lot of new nuance and material for contemporary viewers to enjoy. I think how do I even begin to explain why I like Hackers? Hackers is the most 90s thing. I don't mean it is the most 90s film. I mean it is the most 90s thing I have ever seen made. It's one of those films which I saw on movies at 10 o'clock at night about 3 years ago, and you wake up the next morning wondering if you actually experienced any of it. It's this grand neon fever dream of a movie, and I just adore every second of it. This is what Hackers is for me. Hackers is the adulthood 90s kids were promised. It is the utopian vision of the future that we expected. That was broadcast to us on the pamphlets of 1,000 Scholastic flyers.
I guess you're right. This is a kid power movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. So you would recommend Hackers to everybody?
I really think that, I feel weird calling Hackers family friendly, family fun. But I mean, really, there's a sort of like earnest utopian kind of like conceit to like a lot of its characters' like actions. It is the Rebel Alliance versus like the evil corporate empire. I really think that this is sort of like a good general viewing experience. Just a wildly, horribly anachronistic one.
So I'm just to tell a quick story. As we've mentioned a couple times on the podcast, this show existed before I was a part of it.
Yes.
Originally, this was a show with Brad and his friend Brennan, and our friend Brennan, and I first became a part of the show by just coming on as a guest, and I brought a weird movie that I really loved called Jubilee.
Thought about Jubilee a lot during this.
Yeah, and I brought it in, and I was really excited to talk about it. And I'm having a lot of flashbacks to that time because both Brennan and Brad did not have a good time watching Jubilee. And I was like, oh well. And now I feel really bad because I'm putting Steven through the same situation. I'm afraid that Brad and I did not share your...
it's like you're trying to tell him we're getting a divorce.
Yeah, we have to break up. That's what I'm trying to say. No, we didn't have as euphoric an experience with Hackers as you did, and the movie seems to mean a lot to you. Is I guess the reason why I'm choosing my words carefully. But
you don't have to. It is a dumb movie.
Okay.
It is a profoundly dumb movie.
Okay, good.
Okay,
right.
yeah.
As long as you're on the same page there, then we'll be fine. The movie is, I will say, again, like I said at the top, it's unique. I think it deserves a place on this show. I understand why it would have a cult following. Mm-hmm. It's interesting as I heard someone on the Macaulay Culkin actually called it an artifact of a future as we thought it would be at the time.
As Steven just said.
And Steven just basically touched on the same idea. It's pulling from cyberpunk, but it's mostly pulling from like, it feels like a sort of like half understood idea of
it's AOL cyberpunk.
Time. Yeah, it's AOL cyberpunk. That's a good term for that.
I really like that. I do.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's that is interesting. The part of it that is not good is the script, the editing, the direction, and the acting. This movie was.
I feel like the production design of this movie elevates it and saves so much of it.
Yeah, it all took place on the set of All That.
Well, some sets from All That, and also some sets from the '90s Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
True.
Yeah. And I will say again, not getting into spoilers, there is a practical effect that's in the movie that is genuinely impressive. Like many choices in the film, a practical effect that I don't know if it needed to be in the movie at all, but it was genuinely impressive how it was made. We'll get to it when we get to it. But so there are bits to the movie that I am impressed by. I like that they quote from the actual Hackers Manifesto. Mm-hmm. I found the actual experience of seeing the movie to be difficult. If they put out a tabletop RPG or potentially like a video game,
Shadowrun, my man,
sure, where you live in, but not in an actual cyberpunk world, in an AOL cyberpunk world.
Gotcha.
I would love to play. I would love to play that game and experience the world of the characters. But Johnny Lee Miller's character was so annoying to me. I wanted to kick him in the nuts so hard. He did the one cool thing right at the beginning of the movie, and I was like, okay, cool, I like you. And then he and Angelina Jolie met, and I just started to hate him.
What did you think of his American accent?
Oh, it's terrible.
God,
it's my favorite. My favorite parts of this movie are when Johnny Lee Miller's accent slipped, which actually is most of the movie. Yeah. So I love this movie.
It's one big slip.
I just keep picturing Danny Boyle watching Hackers and being like, I need this guy in Train Spotting.
Apparently that is what happened, though.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Danny Boyle saw him in Hackers and was like, yeah.
Was Danny Boyle doing heroin at the time?
No comment. No idea about that.
I mean,
Brad. Sorry, go ahead, Steven.
Everybody loved him. Wasn't like Jolie married to him 2 years later?
Yes.
Jolie and Johnny Lee Miller got married like a couple months after this movie came out.
It's the power of hacking.
They got into a big this was everyone's first movie. This was Angelina Jolie's first starring role, Johnny Lee Miller's first movie at all. I think it was also Matthew Lillard's first movie.
Yeah.
And so Angelina Jolie and Johnny Lee Miller got into a big old showmance, and they got divorced in under a year after the movie came out.
Do you think it's because she wanted him to speak with an American accent?
She was like, "Oh my God,
if you love me, you'll do it for 5 minutes."
Because he's like a method actor, so he was doing that accent the whole time, just like Lady Gaga for House of Gucci, and his accent is as good as Lady Gaga's accent is in House of Gucci.
I want a movie about a method actor who's really shitty at being a method actor, and like they're speaking in an accent all the time, but it's like really fucking bad, so it's even more annoying.
Only if John Lovitz plays him.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
I was thinking someone needs to revive Lovitz.
Lovitz
absolutely.
thinks that.
Was that John Lovitz right there?
John Lovitz runs the John Lovitz Bring Back John Lovitz website.
I do, and I'm not ashamed. All right, let's start.
Brad, did you have any more thoughts? I kind of dominated that. Do you have any more thoughts about Hackers before we go into spoilers?
I will say this to Steven.
Mm-hmm.
I really tried with this movie. I watched this movie twice.
Really?
Because you're not the only person who feels this way about Hackers. So I'm like, is there something I'm missing?
Again, star of the 90s, Macaulay Culkin. Big fan.
It might be that I fucking hate the 90s. Aside from like a couple things, but a lot of the 90s, especially its cinema, not a huge fan of. So that might have been a problem, but it's, as Billy said, there's not a lot of good stuff here. And while I did hate Johnny Lee Miller, I now want to hunt and kill Matthew Lillard. I want an apology from him before he dies.
Really?
Matthew Lillard
David
is
Lynch
like
acclaimed actor Matthew Lillard?
He's dead.
Just wanted to go scuba diving.
Matthew Lillard is unironically one of my favorite parts of the movie. Like every time he was on screen, I lit up. I enjoyed the movie so much more.
Well,
to have him there. But we'll get into it.
Let's start talking about the plot of Hackers.
Yes.
Do you think there were any other titles for this movie, like Hack to the Future or
Hack to the Future is not bad. Hack to the Future is not bad. I have to imagine that Hack the Planet was one of the names that they kicked around, because it is such a like a recurring motif throughout the film of like Hack the Planet. The show that they love is called Hack the Planet.
The ad print for this movie is sublime. Like every poster just has in huge print, "Their only crime was curiosity,"
which is a line.
Sounds erotic.
That is a line from the actual Hackers Manifesto, which I will say one really cool thing that came from this movie is I did not know. I'd heard of the Hackers Manifesto, but I always thought it was an original thing to this movie. I did not know that the Hackers Manifesto was a real thing.
Yeah.
And so by watching this movie and doing research for the podcast, I found that and I read it and I thought it was fascinating. And it did help to unlock this movie a little bit in my brain.
They're like,
one of the things which, like, I think you need to keep in mind watching this film is, like, this is 94 concept of computers. Like, not a lot of people had internet at this time. A lot of the cast had never been online. They had to, like, get them, like, loaner laptops so they could experience the internet for the first time to be educated with the film. One of the things which I actually thought was quite interesting is that Raphael, the guy who wrote the script, consulted with a ton of real-world hackers.
Yeah,
so much so that, like, the FBI ended up monitoring the entire production. And I have to wonder if that shows up in the movie to a certain degree.
That is hilarious because that sounds like something the FBI agent characters in this movie would do.
Yeah.
Like one of the lame shit things that they would do. But yeah, the movie was written by a guy named Raphael Moreau, who is quoted as saying, "To call hackers a counterculture makes it sound like they're a transitory thing. I think they're the next step in human evolution."
Yeah. Real Max Headroom shit.
That is what I would expect from the man who eventually gives us The Rage, Carrie 2.
Yes, and that's something to like the two most significant movies this guy ever wrote, Hackers and The Rage Carry 2, are both movies that rely heavily on MTV style editing and like really a lot of montages and like really, cringy bits that have been left behind in the 90s.
Yeah.
The director of this movie doesn't usually do stuff like that. Like most of his other movies are not like that. They're more traditionally shot, which makes me think that Raphael would write these montages into his scripts. It's so confusing to me. This is the director's second feature film.
Yes.
This is only his second feature after making a Beatles biopic called Backbeat, which starred Cheryl Lee from Twin Peaks.
Okay.
And in the talkback I found...
Was Cheryl Lee Ringo?
Yes. No. Cheryl Lee was... it's complicated.
What's more important is in that movie, she has the same haircut as Angelina Jolie in this movie.
Oh, no, she does! I didn't pick up on that. So the director has a type.
That is the only takeaway I have from this.
But the only reason I mentioned Backbeat at all, other than the Cheryl Lee connection, is because in the director talkback that I found, like a 20th anniversary talkback, he spent so much more time deviating off the questions they were giving him to talk about Backbeat than he did talking about Hackers, which I think says something.
I think I saw the same interview, and his entire directorial process is I like going to nightclubs. I find scripts that allow me to film at my favorite nightclubs. What's not to love?
Yeah, that's the vibe I got off of him. So we open on a choppy slow motion handheld shot. It's that sort of slow motion that, again, is very 90s where everything seems very clippy.
Clippy, also very 90s.
There you go.
And computers. Oh, why wasn't Clippy in this movie?
What? Clippy could have offered them help.
Clippy could have been their inside man.
They're all talking about how fast it'll take to get into the Gibson, and he's like, if you accept my help, it'll only take seconds.
Looks like you're trying to take down capitalist fat cats. Want some help?
So the slow motion handheld shot following a SWAT team in the middle of suburbia. They bust in to a neighborhood home.
I want to point out something here.
Okay.
Here's how you know these aren't real cops.
Okay.
We see a dog and they do not shoot that dog. These are actors in a movie.
These are definitely actors in the movie.
Took me right out of the film. That's the problem. First 15 seconds, I was like, I'm not buying it.
Just ruined the movie for you. So we see the SWAT team burst into the house. A woman we now later learn is Lauren Murphy. And right before they're about to take in their suspect, we cut to black and fade in a courtroom where a prosecuting attorney is introducing us to Dade Murphy, also known as Zero Cool. He's a computer genius who sent out a computer virus that crashed a ton of systems. I'm not sure.
1507.
1507 systems, including some Wall Street trading systems, causing a 7-point drop in the New York stock market. I have no idea what that means.
It means he did.
I still thought that it was pronounced stonks until I watched this movie, so I have no idea what's going on. But I know, but that is the important detail. Zero, because we should respect
his handle.
Yeah. Zero is only 11 years old. Mm-hmm. And we get this very Mel Brooksian shot where it pans across all the very serious adults and then get the same level and catches his little sprigs of hair coming up and his hands down. And it's funny because the entire thing is shot and not acted, but shot as if it were a comedy scene. But the music, which is this industrial rock dirge that seems to be sampling the soundtrack from Titanic, makes it seem like this is the most serious, dramatic thing that ever happened. But it's still shot like a comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
But he's just he's a wee little boy.
Yeah.
Here's an important question. Mm-hmm. Is Dade short for Daedalus?
Ooh.
Kind of has to be, doesn't it?
That seems like it is, yeah.
Remind me which one was Daedalus again?
Daedalus was Icarus's father. He built the maze that the Minotaur was in.
Yes.
And the wings.
Also a character in Deus Ex. an AI character.
Right, that makes sense. So he's sentenced by the court to have no more computer or phone time until he turns 18.
He's super grounded.
He's super grounded. We get more choppy slow-mo of Zero and his family leaving the courthouse. Cut to an airplane 7 years later.
I think this movie would have been better for many reasons. Okay. If it had been like a Lee Harvey Oswald thing where they were like, "Hey, Murphy," and someone shoots like some stockbroker is like
like Batman Begins is like, hey, Falcone says hi. Boom.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say, I think this movie would have been better if it was like The Wizard situation, where we just followed 11-year-old hacker and he meets up with Fred Savage and a whole bunch of other little kids, and they're all just like, the rest of the movie is more or less the same, but they're just sort of like, you can't be elite without a handle, and they're all like these little precocious kids running around.
There's a power glove in both movies.
There is. That's true. To cut to an airplane 7 years later, Zero is now played by bleached blonde Johnny Lee Miller. When asked what attracted him to the script, Johnny Lee Miller said, "It was my first movie."
Fair.
I would have done anything you threw at me.
I wanted to camouflage a keyboard.
A lot of people make fun of like how old he looks in this movie, including me when I was making my initial notes.
Yeah. I
looked it up. He was only 23 and he's playing an 18-year-old. By Hollywood standards, that's not far off.
And we both agree he looked about 80.
He looked like he was 40.
He looked like Dan Chalice when he was in the studio.
And I feel mean. He looks exactly the same now. So he at least froze at some point in time.
He started drinking the adrenochrome. The Illuminati saw hackers and they were like, "We need you in our blood cabal."
I will say, despite like ragging on the director a little bit, and I will be ragging on the director later, I'm not stopping. Johnny Lee Miller said that the only movie where he had as much prep work as Trainspotting was this movie. They gave them like trainer laptops, as you said. They took like typing classes. They had to take rollerblading classes. They were expected to meet with the same hackers that the screenwriter had consulted with. They did all of this shit, and then they came on set and started making the movie, and apparently were very confused by a lot of the decisions that the director had made once they got there, because none of it lined up with any of the research he had made them do.
Sir, this is not what we learned at computer camp.
So apparently a similar level of preparedness went into making hackers as went into making aliens.
Okay.
I don't know. That seems weird to me. And we cut to the moment when this movie went full 90s for me. We cut to the title sequence where he's looking down on the aerial shot of New York City. He's moving to New York City, as we find out later. He's looking down at the aerial shot of New York City, and it transforms before his eyes
into a computer,
into a circuit board with lightning and lights flashing all over it. And then in like super 90s-esque font, it comes into frame. Hackers.
I had a Muppet, like a children's book with the Muppets, with Kermit, that explained computers and how they worked.
Oh God!
Basically, this intro. It's like, yeah, it's a little road.
I think if you grew up during this time where they're trying to explain computers to people,
motherfucker, I'm older than you.
True. Okay. But I grew up in like rural PA, like where there was no technology anywhere. So like it was like the gods must be crazy. Whenever by the time we got like a fax machine, what was like this new item sent by the gods? But I think it's like, how do you explain cyberspace to people? Well, it's basically like a world that exists over the normal world.
True.
I tried to watch Tron recently. I only got about 5 minutes in before I was like, I need to not be on my phone for this, and I don't have the attention span right now. But like, I got a lot of very Tron-y vibes, which is another movie that's like, the internet is new and weird, and we don't know how to include it in our movies yet.
Okay, but like the other films that come out, I think the same year, are Johnny Mnemonic, The Net. Like, this is the closest.
Johnny Mnemonic at least had I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I feel like this is the most utopian, positive, like, portrayal of the internet you get in 94.
I would entirely agree. I think that like the writer was saying, like the writer clearly loved the hacker shit that he found and that he researched, and he definitely has a very positive view of them, more positive than most of the time. It does help that it's a cyberpunk movie that takes place in the present rather than in a actual cyberpunk universe.
Also helps that Henry Rollins isn't around.
I can see a universe where Henry Rollins was absolutely in this movie in some capacity, just like someone in one
is either Fisher Stevens or Henry Rollins.
Fisher playing the Fisher Stevens character, or just like one of the bands in one of the clubs that they go into. Is this when Johnny has his first line and you realize just exactly the kind of American accent you're about to get yourself into? Steven, you asked us what we thought of his American accent. What did you think of his American accent?
I'm not sure if this is a stupid take or not. I think he sounds weirdly like James Rolfe a lot of the time when he's trying way too hard to like over enunciate.
He does kind of look like James Rolfe in this movie. But maybe it's just because he has a high forehead and so does James Rolfe. I
really think that this is like a very superficial comparison on my part, but it's something I just couldn't stop thinking while I was watching it this time.
That's all right. That's all right. He reminded me of William Shatner a lot, because his not only is his accent very strange, but all of his, even like little lines, he's acting as if to the back row. It's very theater. It's very theater.
I've never understood what the word arch meant. But now Johnny Lee Miller is arch.
This is arch.
Okay.
Yeah, no, this is fucking arch. And he's like, he has this bit. He's just asking someone. No, someone comes up to him and says something to him, and he doesn't hear them at first, and then he's like, the line is, "I'm sorry, you wanted like just like that," but he says, "Sorry, you wanted."
Yeah,
I have noticed that he has never really been in a position since this movie where he has ever had to play a part where he had to use an accent, and I have a feeling that Johnny Lee Miller heard his accent when watching this movie and was like, okay, got it. Not good at those. Gonna move on and play Sherlock Holmes for the rest of my life. I'm good with that.
It's important to know your weaknesses.
It is important. Anyway, so Zero, or as he renames himself in this scene, Crash Override.
Zero Cool is so much better than Crash Override.
You think so?
It's so much better.
But it's not thematically relevant because he already wiped out a Zero Cool. Now he's overridden that Crash.
Oh, I see. It's an override of his previous thing. Okay.
See, Raphael, when he writes a script, there are layers, man.
Apparently we all have to watch The Rage Carry 2 after.
Yeah.
Because we need to find out more about this artiste. So he does probably the coolest thing that he does in the whole... Well, the coolest and lamest thing he does at the same time. The lamest thing is that in order to make us understand that Crash Override is a cool character, they have him hacking on a computer with like junk food and sunglasses in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
Just hacking away with sunglasses in the dark. In a bit that I saw praised by some actual hackers on YouTube who were reviewing this movie, the first bit of hacking we see him doing is not so much a lot of typing, but social engineering, tricking someone over the phone into giving him important data about the computer. And the first bit of hacking that he achieves is to pirate a TV signal, cutting off a racist political pundit and replacing him with an episode of The Outer Limits.
And now here's where, like, there should have been more of this shit, where it's like, I'm going to punish racists. I mean, he says a bunch of dumb one-liners after he does it.
Right.
Not the point. But
it's like, get a job.
Sound like Paul Lynde. Hacker, I barely know him.
Sorry, you wanted?
Here's one of my thoughts about Dade. Do you think that like they're trying to lean into how bad the accent is? Like he's supposed to come across as like the cringe, weird kid, so like everything that he says should sound kind of off kilter? Or do you think it's just a bad accent?
This is a problem I have with a lot of this movie, is I cannot...
You can't tell where...
Define the intentions.
Gotcha.
Especially with a character we're going to get to later. But with Dade, I felt like we were supposed to think he was cool. I never really felt like we were supposed to be like anything else.
I will say, and it also might be that, because sometimes there are a lot of different people working on the movie, we know that the screenwriter and the director had very different ideas for the movie, and we'll get into just how different those ideas were later. But so there might part of the problem might be that there are different hands at the wheel.
Yeah.
I know that one of the director's first picks for the role of Crash was actually Matthew Lillard. Matthew Lillard was an actor who was just brought in to read behind the camera for the actresses auditioning for the part that eventually went to Angelina Jolie. Mm-hmm. He liked his take on the character so much, he brought him out to Hollywood. And then according to Matthew Lillard, in an interview I watched him, he said, well, I wasn't as pretty as Johnny Lee Miller, so they went with him. And that could be just him making a joke or being like spiteful, but also
and join the Illuminati blood cabal.
Right. Yeah. But it also could be a situation where the director saw Crash as more of like a sort of a weird guy.
Yeah. If it were Lillard,
you don't cast Matthew Lillard as a normal person.
No.
But the studio or the screen or like what the studio wanted was like, no, the kids want to feel like they're the cool badass, so we need this guy to be a cool badass. And Johnny Lee Miller is kind of a compromise between those two. He both has like a sort of a British punk edge to him, which is why he's in Trainspotting. But he's also an awkward dork, which is why he gets cast as people like Sherlock in Elementary.
But he hacks the station to put on The Outer Limits. Yep. Because if you're an 18-year-old in 1995, right? What else do you want to watch?
Yeah, exactly.
Beside the inferior show, he couldn't put on The Twilight Zone.
Ooh, getting some hot takes today.
The film is weirdly in love with Outer Limits. Like, Joey wears an Outer Limits cap the entire movie.
Oh, he has a Lost in Space cap, my friend.
That's right. Excuse me.
I will tell you what this movie is obsessed with. It's obsessed with things the studio already owned.
Yes.
They could use The Outer Limits. They could use the clips from these other movies that get spliced into the film later on. And so they were like, decided to go with that. And I will say, this is the coolest thing that he does. And I agree with you, Brad. I wish that he had done more of this sort of like taken down, like we had more examples of him taking down the man in the film. But I
want to point out one other thing.
Okay.
He puts on The Outer Limits, but he doesn't use the part of the intro where they say, we control the transmission.
Yeah.
What the fuck? This is day one stuff, hacker.
Right. That would have been such a cool thing to do. I think that's obviously more of like an editing problem than anything else.
No, that's a Dade problem.
That's a Dade. Okay, we're going to come down on Dade for that. But yeah, no, that would have been so much cooler if they'd like cut right to the opening where like it legitimately looks like there's something wrong with your TV for a couple of seconds. But I did want to point out that even though he takes down a racist on TV, he does a racism like a few minutes earlier in the social engineering bit. It's this funny bit where he's like coming up with all the shit.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh man, you gotta help me out, or Mr. Kawasaki's gonna make me commit harikari. You know these Japanese management techniques. Yeah. And it's I was like, we didn't need that. And again, like if they'd made it more of like he was playing into a racism that the guy he was talking to had.
Yeah, if this guy answered the phone and was like, hello, I hate Chinese people, what do you gotta say? And then Dade, being a mastermind, would be like, I can work with this.
Oh, I can work with this. Yeah, exactly. But anyway,
and obviously Mr. Kawasaki would be Japanese with the harikari.
Yeah. You were playing into the character. Yeah. He said, I hate Chinese people. And he's like, okay, yeah, I'll play into that. But I did really like when he said, oh, my BLT drive is on the fritz.
Really? You like that?
I enjoyed that.
Okay.
It was a fun bit.
Yeah, you're an easy sell.
You're
what we call a mark.
I am famously an easy sell and a mark.
That's why I have you on this show.
I have legitimately been hacked many times.
Are you like my mother where they're just like, hey, give us your password. We're from Microsoft.
Back in high school, yes, I was.
What were you doing? I'm surprised you had internet on the compound in high school. I assumed you had some like North Korea net. You could go to the VeggieTales website.
Disney Plus XD.
What'd you say?
Disney XD.
Oh, Disney XD was too hardcore.
Oh, I see.
No, I will say though, Disney XD was so not hardcore. They played actual Christian rock music videos on that network when it first came out. I remember as a Christian kid, like being like, "Oh man, they play Reliant K. This is the coolest."
But
I was such a sheltered child.
But he's hacking. He's hacking
up a storm,
and then another hacker starts to hack him.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. They take over his monitor and they start talking to him using the same font as the "you wouldn't download a car" font.
Yes.
I forgot to put that in my note, but yeah, no, I immediately thought that.
And both of these hackers are only obsessed with like 50-year-old movies that are now in the public domain. That is all they want to watch.
Right, and Zero announces his new moniker of Crash Override.
Mm-hmm.
The hacker says that they are called Acid Burn. And I love Crash's reaction to meeting another hacker in this moment. I wrote down, it's like a sheltered mutant learning that about the X-Men for the first time. He's like, another hacker?
We should also point out that he's in fucking New York City.
Right.
And he's like, what? People use computers here too? I mean, it's a major metropolitan area. You came from Seattle. You didn't go to fucking Mount Pilot, North Carolina.
He doesn't know. He's been off the internet for 7 years. He's been on the inside.
Okay.
That's a very good point.
What? Maybe these things should be more obvious, at least on the second watch. Maybe it shouldn't take like the 10th watch to really get the subtext.
I will say this could have been a good out for them with his accent if they said like, oh, this computer genius, but he's from a little village in England, and they just moved across, and they're already moving.
Yeah.
Why don't just have them move over across the pond, and now they're in New York City, and he's even more of a weirdo now.
Yeah.
That could have been great, but they whatever.
Here's the question I have with this scene.
Okay,
so Acid Burn, OTV, the television station, is Acid Burn's turf.
Yeah.
One, what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah.
And two, like, why does she give a shit? It's 3 a.m. in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
He put on Outer Limits. Like, what is she doing? She's allowing the racist program to be aired. Like,
she likes racism. He doesn't like racism. She does like racism. How will this odd couple get along?
Oh, man.
Yeah. That's the whole bit. Steven, were you about to say something?
No. We're getting into like deeper spoilers. So we talk about the identity of Acid Burn. I could speculate as to why she's okay with racism.
Very, very true. Very true. We got to protect that. We got to protect those juicy morsels.
Yeah.
So the two then have a battle over control of the TV station, literally controlling the little robots that put the tapes in.
Those are my favorite characters.
Fighting each. I was saying it's a montage that reminds me of the bit when Richard Pryor hacks the world in Superman 3, which again is also spoilers because later on we find out that another hack that Richard Pryor does in Superman 3 is the main plot of the whole movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I just wrote down during this bit, which goes on for a while, of them having a hacker battle. It's just very hard to make typing on a computer look cool or sexy. It's very hard. They're trying their best.
Mr. Robot did it pretty well.
Did they?
Okay. The one season of that I saw.
Okay, I saw none of Mr. Robot. Did you watch any of Mr. Robot, Steven?
I have not seen any Mr. Robot.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy the first season of Mr. Robot.
So for me, this is the sexiest typing I've ever seen. Like 10 out of 10.
I mean, what about that one movie with RoboCop? What was it called? Everything's Bugs.
Everything's Bugs.
Yeah, that's the name of the movie. No, that's the plot of the movie. No, it's
Naked Lunch.
Naked Lunch. There's like this erotic typing scene in everything.
That's like bad touch typing.
Everything's Bugs sounds like a Fantasia I don't want to see. Where it's just like, everything I touch turns to maggots.
So Fantasia is directed by Peter Capaldi.
But the battle sort of ends. No, Dade gets kicked off by Acid Burn.
Yes, his connection is terminated. He says, shit on me!
Yep.
And then we almost get a character scene between Crash and his mom, in which there's like almost some character building stuff, but they only kind of get to some banter bits.
Really bad dialogue where it's like, you're a kid and I'm a mom and I'm a kid and you're a mom. And
he
doesn't put his fucking Coke bottle back in the fridge.
No. But you got to leave that out for product placement. Like, if you watch the rest of the film, that Coke bottle never leaves that counter. It's just glued
oh my
there.
God.
They're both a mess.
Yeah. I will say...
I have a little bit of a crush on Dade's mom.
I don't blame you.
But with a kid like Dade, I don't think I could do it.
I don't think you could put up with him.
Too much of a troublemaker. I want him to call me Dad. Daddy, preferably. Papa.
Right.
But yeah.
I will say this movie, one thing that legitimately, like, most of this movie was just like, hey, this isn't for me. There is one bit about this movie that really bothered me, is this movie has a contentious relationship with women, just in general. Like, they're all this an inability to interact with them in any kind of respectful or non-sexual way. Even the dialogue between him and his mom, it's all like... He said she asks, because she's worried about him getting out. She says, "Are you interested in girls at all?" And he said, "I haven't met one as charming as you yet, mother." And like, there's like a bunch of like, that's one of the, I forget the other comment that he made, but it's worse than that.
Tells her he's still a virgin.
Yes.
Oh yeah, and I'm still a virgin, mother. But
which
like,
I have to
just
assume he shouts at her every morning. It seems to be the routine.
But it's just like this. If it weren't for the rest of the movie, I would put it aside as just weirdly chosen lines.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's part of a greater trend, I feel like probably the writer, I don't think it's a director, but probably the writer just has like a weird relationship with women, and it made me very uncomfortable.
Now, in a better movie, they could spin this as like, it's cliche, but the nerd thing of like, I don't know how to talk to girls, and I'm sort of a dick because I'm antisocial and awkward. And
well, even if you read the original Hacker's Manifesto, the first part of it is about him, the writer of it, talking about himself as being someone who was had a lot of trouble making friends and making connections outside of his family, and that through the computer world, through the digital space, he was able to be much more confident and much more himself than otherwise. So that's not off message at all.
Yeah,
it just
doesn't come through in the actual film.
No, they definitely do not go there with
now. We get Dade's first day at school.
Yes, first day at school. We get yet another montage, this time of New York City. He's rollerblading all the way to school.
No one walks in this movie. No one can walk like a normal fucking human. I'm surprised Matthew Lillard doesn't come in on a horse at one point. Fucking Fisher Stevens parasails.
Hey, the horse is the way of the past, man. This is the future. 1984 is a typo, man.
Horse, like William S. Burroughs, the big H man.
There's a great bad movie bit where Crash is wandering through a crowd of just endless students, all of them in various, just like some of them by themselves, some of them talking to other people. He needs directions, and the only person he asks is someone using a payphone to call Venezuela.
It doesn't matter where they're...
If you have to choose like one random person to talk to, the guy wearing double leopard print is going to be high on my list.
Not if he's using a telephone.
Right.
Like, he's clearly doing something else. And then Dade is like, what an asshole. Sorry. He's like, what an asshole.
Is he Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Yeah. That's a Scottish accent.
Right, yeah, because he's not even Scottish. He's English.
Johnny Lee Miller?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's a great Scottish accent.
Okay. Sorry, I was looking for the principal's office. He heads to the principal's office, and here he meets Kate, as played by Angelina Jolie. Again, this is Angelina Jolie's first ever leading role. The film is so obsessed with how hot Angelina Jolie is. The minute Crash sets eyes on her, he basically orgasms on the spot if the montage is anything to go by.
He has this amazing Liechtenstein painting freak out. It's incredible.
It looks like one of those student films that collage student films George Lucas made when he was first starting out. It's just like a barrage of famous erotic artwork.
It's obviously way back now, but my note was Dade is apparently too hacker to put his Coke back in the fridge.
Dade is too hacker to do a lot of things. Like, so much of this film is about how Dade has special hacker eyes that allow him to see the world differently from everyone else.
For real, though.
He's got special hacker eyes.
He is kind of treated like, you're the...
Well, he did a cool thing when he was 11.
Yeah, you're the one, Neo. You're the exceptional hacker.
See, you say that, but like, hot take, I don't know that you get Matrix without hackers.
Oh, I'd be willing to believe that.
I'm willing to cede that stepping stone to you.
I think the Wachowskis come by and are like, we can make this into even more of a trans narrative, and then...
Do you see hackers as a trans narrative?
I think that it's queer-coded pretty heavily for a film from 94. I think that a lot of its attempts at, like, being inclusive come across retroactively as, like, cynical and transphobic.
And cringy?
Yeah.
I can see flashes of it.
There are definitely flashes of it, and we're about to meet one of them pretty soon. But first we have to talk about Angelina Jolie. She was 20 when the movie came out. She's playing an 18-year-old. The movie still manages to make me feel very creepy whenever she's on screen. Yeah. Just the movie is obsessed with her on like a level of like Michael Bay being obsessed with Megan Fox.
Yeah.
She's very attractive, and she was.
Yeah, let's get it on record. Let's
Sure.
put it on. Let's be the ones who finally say it.
Hot takes.
I'm the last sane man in the world, and I'm gonna fucking say it. Angelina Jolie is attractive. Call me Joe Rogan, Alex Jones, or whatever the fuck you want to call me.
Are you triggered?
I'm glad I was able to be here for your final podcast.
We're going full JonTron.
This is the one that's gonna get me killed, man. Too many truths.
And now let us sell our protein pills. But
yes.
Brainworms. Despite my problems with the way she's framed in the film, I thought she was the best actor in the movie.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, she's the daughter of John Voight.
Apparently he was never in her life growing up, but... You know.
I like to think that every time she was on set, he would show up.
Uh-huh.
No one would see him. He'd be in the rafters. And he'd just be praying like a motherfucker.
Oh, my God.
And that allowed her to be Lara Croft.
I mean, it's definitely creepy enough to be something John Voight would do.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he's wonderful.
From what I read about production, on set, everybody asked her about how her dad was doing, if she could introduce them. And, like, most of the production, Angelina Jolie is just going around telling people to fuck off whenever they ask her about her dad.
It's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he abandoned her when she was like 5. So yeah, she's perfectly allowed to do that.
Hey, can you get this VHS copy of Deliverance signed for me?
Say, you have a pretty mouth. Everyone in this movie feels very try-hard, and she just kind of has a sort of like natural charisma to her, which is great. I haven't seen a lot of Angelina Jolie movies, so this is like one of my first, honestly.
It's probably one of my first, too.
Yeah. A lot of her stuff is very mainstream, and I kind of avoided it because I'm an asshole.
I think this is also a good point to like jump in and talk about the fashion in the movie, because it really boggles the mind. There's a lot of like leather racing jackets. There's a lot of like jewelry from the 30s that is randomly thrown in. And like in this scene, what?
Jewelry from the 30s?
Some of it, yeah. Like when I've listened, I don't know exactly what it is. I think it's some of their earrings, but apparently there's like some clothing and jewelry bits which go back to the 30s.
Okay.
They later on you see like a big poster for Metropolitan.
Yes.
I think they wanted to incorporate some vintage futurism of like the Art Deco movement into like some of the...
I think you mean Metropolis.
Metropolis, excuse me. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Because, I did notice that, and I was like, I think that must have been intentionally placed. Because that's another movie that is a very specific vision of the future from a very specific point in the past.
Also, public domain.
Public domain, which does help. Sorry, go ahead, Steven.
But Jolie in the scene has this backpack that hangs down past her butt and has about 80 different zippers on it. It looks like an H.R. Giger design.
I was going to say Rob Liefeld, but yeah.
My favorite backpacks are H.R. Giger's backpacks in the 90s when he decides like,
All the straps are penises.
You children can have backpacks designed by me.
You open up the backpack, and inside there is another backpack. And inside that there's another backpack, and inside that is a bunch of dicks.
Oh man, I was so sad when his Dune themed backpack never got released.
Yeah.
So she's helping him out, helping him find his way around. It's here that I noticed that Johnny Lee Miller has this incredibly stiff, sort of almost pogoing walk, which I've always noticed because I watch a lot of Elementary. So I've seen him walk in that, and he walks the same way. I always thought that was a character choice to make Sherlock seem more like out of place. Apparently, Johnny Lee Miller just has one of the weirdest walks.
Yeah.
So that's something I noticed.
Aerosmith once told him to walk that way.
Yes.
And Johnny Lee
took it
Miller
to heart.
follows direction very well.
Yeah.
That's how he got the part in Hackers.
One of the better lines in the movie, she drops him off at his class and is about to go to her advanced English class. He says, "Oh, I'm not in your class?" And she says, "No, you're not in my class."
Yeah, it's real Oscar Wilde.
It was cool. I thought it was cool the way she said it.
But then we get the epic prank.
The epic prank.
Where she wasn't even going to do it, but some random passerby is like, "Hey, tell him about the pool."
Right, yeah. He's like, "Hey, there's a pool on the roof." So, well, yeah, one of the oldest pranks in the world.
Oh, the old classic. I'm sure you had homeschool. This got played on you all the time.
Oh, all the time. And
your younger siblings would be like, "There's a pool on the roof."
And I fell for it every time, which is weird because we all lived in the same house. Yeah.
And also, you lived there longer than they did.
Yeah, exactly. So
your dad would prank you with it.
I just assumed that like something had changed and they hadn't told me. And I was like, "Oh, we finally got that pool? Okay.
We finally got
if it's pool. Not there, I'm like Lucy and the football with me."
So he goes up to the roof and ends up being surprised at this New York public school.
Yes.
I assume it's public school.
Could be.
There is no pool on the roof because it's fucking New York. Why would he want to see this pool? Why does he have such a fucking hard-on to see this damn pool?
No, I think that Angelina Jolie makes a comment that makes it sound like she's going to meet him there, and he's like already got the hots for her. So he's like, "Okay, we're gonna maybe kiss."
I watched this movie twice. I took notes twice.
Okay.
I'm still asking why the fuck's he want to see this pool.
Steven, do you remember why he wanted to see the pool?
A lot of my read on like Dade's motivations are that Dade's a little weirdo and just sort of does things arbitrarily. He doesn't have much of an attention span.
That's a super convenient characteristic. Just lilting on the wind.
I don't know. I've known enough like engineering majors in my day that I thought maybe it was an intentional scripting decision, maybe not.
Or yeah, I don't know.
I agree. It's a convenient out that I'm giving this movie.
Yeah, the writer met up with all these hackers and is like, "Wow, these guys are all really spacey."
They all really love roof pools. They won't stop talking about them. Kevin Mitnick never shut the fuck up about a pool on the roof.
He eventually makes his way down from the roof, and he starts his plan to hack and stalk and emotionally manipulate his way into Kate's heart. While he's hacking the school systems to get himself into that advanced English class with Kate, Ramon, the kid who was calling Venezuela earlier,
yes,
happens to notice him hacking, and he is, in terms of like coded queerness, I would say the most coded queer character. He's
got strong bi energy.
I mean, he might be bi, sure. They definitely go out. The only attraction he ever shows in the movie is to a woman once in passing, which I just took as a, don't worry, he's a weird kid. He's not a gay kid. Don't worry, audience.
There is a deleted scene where he has a Venezuelan girlfriend who shows up at the end of the film. And like there's a running gag that nobody believes that she exists.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially with what we see of him using phones.
Right.
Aside from Venezuela being the freak.
Right.
He's the phone freak.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated all the talk about phone freaking in this movie because that is the roots of hacking.
Phone hacking?
And as just any hacking. Like phone freaks were the original.
Okay, I don't know anything about this.
It's not important because this episode is already going to be super fucking long.
Sure.
But phone freaking is a tradition. Like, it's an important root It's part of the Anarchist Cookbook. I think it's even in Steal This Book by Abby Hoffman.
Oh, nice.
I'm not sure about that. Both of these things I read when I was a young man, but it's definitely a part of Anarchist Cookbook. So it's phone freaking is an important hack tip that this movie, especially because these are the days of dial-up.
Yeah.
So it's all still phone-based.
Oh, yeah. No, they're the most important thing to all these hackers throughout the movie is where can we get a phone line that we can use, which was an interesting blast from the past for me. I hadn't thought about that in years.
Yep.
But yeah, so Ramon is very coded queer, but apparently that was supposed to lead to a punchline that got cut out, which is disappointing. But he's inviting Crash to meet him at some club.
Cyberdelia,
who's like an amateur hacker who's like, oh man, I gotta get a handle. I'm nothing without a handle. I'm not nothing without a handle.
Oh, he's really the Henry Hill of this movie.
Who's Henry Hill?
Goodfellas, Ray Liotta's character.
Okay.
I always wanted to be a hacker.
That's exactly who he is. So he's asking. Oh, so every hacker has a handle. We've been talking about their handles, and since we're watching this movie, we're getting really in depth with the hacker culture. This is a grand opportunity for us to all realize our dreams, because I know each one of us wants to be a hacker.
Yep.
Dreaming of this utopian future, as Steven says it. So let's come up with some hacker handles. What are we thinking of or what are going to be our hacker monikers? Brad, what do you think?
I've got a couple ideas.
Okay.
1, Drag and Drop Douglas.
Drag and Drop Douglas. Okay.
2, Number Punch.
Number Punch. I like it.
And 3, Computers with a interrobang, which is a question mark with the exclamation point inside of it. Yeah, so those are my 3.
I like that. Steven, what have you got
I was thinking 404 or Cringe Lord.
404 or Cringe. I like that. I only came up with one, but I came up with the perfect one, so I don't need any more other options. Blueberry Death Cuddle.
Okay.
Just rolls off the tongue.
Rolls off the tongue.
Yeah.
It came. I plumbed the depths of my soul and looking for my truth, and it came out.
You hacked into your heart.
I did,
and you guessed your heart's password.
I did,
which was sex. And
yes,
this is the truth you found.
This is the truth I found. Yes, it was either going to be sex, love, God, or
secret,
or secret. Yeah, exactly.
So at Cyberdelia, we run into star of Twin Peaks: The Return, Love's Labor's Lost, and All's Fair in Love, Matthew Lillard. Yep.
Who is hawking a compilation tape called The Greatest Zooks Album, compiled exclusively of artists who choked on their own vomit. You can't get this in stores, man!
That's impressive. I liked that one.
No, yeah, great impression. I'm glad you fucking blew out the mic. But I fucking hate this character. Like, I want reparations.
What is it? Just that he's chewing the scenery so much, or is it like
just like that? And he looks like he's the son of Willem Dafoe in Streets of Fire. Who it's like when your dad just walks around the house in like tit high pleather overalls. Yeah. Like, how the fuck do you rebel from that?
You rebel by wearing pigtails all the time.
Pigtails, and like later he says, "Look at that pooper," and I hate that.
Instead of saying "Look at that butt" or "Look at that ass," he says, "Look at that pooper."
Just the way he says things, so fucking Matthew Lillard.
It's very Matthew Lillard,
and it's like that's.
I used to be annoyed by Matthew Lillard's style of humor. And
then you heard the good news that Matthew Lillard had returned.
Right? Yeah. When I was younger, and like if for some reason, as I get older, the more and more appreciative I get of Matthew Lillard.
Your parents always told you that this would happen, but you didn't believe them.
That's exactly right. They were like, someday you'll understand the comedic genius.
They're watching Scooby-Doo 2, Monsters Unite, or whatever the fuck it's called.
Yeah. You know, I will say Matthew Lillard agrees with you.
Yeah.
He hates his performance in this movie.
Good.
He says,
okay, well, now I'm conflicted about my murder plans.
It's like, I don't know what I was doing, and every time someone comes up to me and says, hackers, I'm like, really? But apparently that happens to him when he goes into the Apple store almost exclusively.
Oh, that's odd. That sounds like a fake story.
But I think that his character's name is Serial Killer. Serial felt like Fruit Loops.
Yeah, because he's crazy.
Because he's nuts. But as I've already talked about how Matthew Lillard got to be a part of this movie, I just think that his performance of this character, like the Zooks bit, I think wouldn't work with any other actor. I think it would come off as tasteless and gross. The energy he puts into it, to me, makes it work and made me laugh.
Maybe I don't like this character because aside from the annoying way of talking, this might have been like me in high school, like quoting Ginsberg and like shit like that.
Yeah.
No, wait, that was fucking Dade. I'm Dade.
You're Dade?
I'm sorry. False alarm. False alarm, everybody. I'm Johnny Lee Miller.
He is the one who has a whole bunch of like anarchist hacker books that he like tests Dade on later.
Yeah, that's
on.
a fucking. We'll talk about that when we get there. But at Cyberdelia, which has a rollerblading / skateboard ramp, which
again, this is the Foot Ninjas lair from the TMNT.
Yeah,
the future we were promised.
Right, yeah. Indoor skate park that also has gigantic immersive video games. It's
with no line. There's just one giant cab.
No line. In real life, Johnny Lee Miller would have been in traction because he would have run into 30 fucking people.
Yeah, but instead he just rolls right up to that game where he sees Angelina Jolie dressed up as what did I say? Dressed up as 70s Buck Rogers.
Here's another, like the cop's not shooting the dog. Here's another bit of verisimilitude where the movie loses things.
Okay.
Presumably, this is a 21 and under club.
Sure.
Where are all the creepy dudes trying to scam on underage chicks? Or, I suppose, barely legal chicks.
I think, again...
I guess that's Lord Nikon.
We can assume maybe everybody's been held back about 6 years.
I think that is part of like the sort of like utopian idealism of the film is that there is a place where kids can just get away and be themselves, as opposed to the real world where there's like nowhere that they can get away from adults fucking with them.
So Kate is playing a video game.
Yes.
And of course she has to be the best at it because what's hotter than a girl who plays video games?
Right. And Crash decides to be sexist. He's like, oh, you're good for a girl, but I can beat you. And he beats her high score, and Ramon tells him, you've made an enemy for life.
Here's a couple things.
Okay.
One, Angelina Jolie storms off like a child.
Yes, she does. With her completely superfluous and entirely without any kind of charisma boyfriend.
Curtis!
Curtis, that's
Curtis.
Right. I heard that, Curtis.
No point in the story whatsoever.
Yeah.
Aside from at one point Angelina Jolie needs to be having sex with someone, so she goes into her room and she could have been looking for something.
Literally after they leave the club, she and Curtis are making out on the motorcycle, and he asks Ramon, what does Curtis do? He's like, that.
Which is, you know what, a nice bit of meta writing.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. But in this scene, I think it's clear that both Miller and Angelina Jolie were told, like, yeah, the background music's going to be really loud, so you guys got to shout. You guys got to really shout.
It's going to be bumping in here.
Because they are screaming their lines.
Yeah.
And as she rides off on Curtis's motorcycle, and she's too cool and pretty to put her helmet on.
Of course.
So she holds it behind her very uncomfortably and very unsafely, because I feel like she should be holding on to him or some sort of bar. This is how New York City hackers do it. That's their hockey team, the New York City Hackers.
See, what you don't see is that she was winding up to smash the skull of a PA just off camera who wouldn't stop asking for John Voight's autograph.
Yeah. Tell us the status of the Baby Geniuses script.
All the John Voight fans will got to shout.
It was in Variety since like 92. Baby Geniuses, it's coming.
It was like
John Voight set to star.
It was like the Mask sequel in Duke Nukem Forever. It just kept getting pushed back, pushed back.
But Dade is planning a righteous hack. Not a righteous hack, a pretty cool hack, like a George Michael hack.
First, he gets revenge on Angelina Jolie by setting off the sprinklers on the entire school.
Yeah, this is his hack.
Which I thought was needlessly dickish.
It's needlessly dickish, but also I don't understand. Like, Angelina Jolie gets all huffy about it. And it's like, again, why the fuck do you care?
Right. And then there's the one bit of...
aside from the fact that now her conveniently white shirt is now wet.
Right, and this is where we get the only bit of remaining "oops, no homo" for Ramon, is where like a girl wanders by in a white t-shirt is like,
oh yeah,
hey, look, But even then, the actor does not seem all that interested.
Dade just needs to assert himself as the alpha hacker. He is the dominant. He is pissed all over this territory, and now it's his.
Kate is also pissed off because she then learns that Dade snuck into her advanced lit class.
Which she should be angry that he is stalking her. Right.
No, that she's absolutely in the right here. And then there's a very pointless bit, which I imagine...
This whole scene is pointless.
Well, it at least communicates the point that he's in her class now. The really pointless bit, which I guess if you want more Matthew Lillard like I did, it gives you that. If you don't, like you didn't... This is horrible, is Matthew Lillard saying, wait, is this not shop class? Because he's also not supposed to be there.
We also learned that he is apparently extremely Jewish because his name is Emmanuel Goldstein.
This whole scene is hilarious to me. It's one of my favorites in the series. It's actually like one of the rare cases where it's a little ahead of its time. Because you can see like Dade, Serial, and Kate have all written something on the board. And they all have totally different fonts. And like, you can only see it for a second, but Serial has written out everything in like alternate Haxor language.
Yeah, I saw that.
And
I did not notice that at all.
Kate has this hugely elaborate like skater font, like the sort of thing you'd carve into your desk in middle school. And I imagine it took them about 20 minutes to add all these flourishes, their quotes, and everybody just sat there patiently and watched.
That is the self-absorption level of all three of these characters.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, so then we cut to what I call Hacker Book Club, where
Joey's double fisting cigarettes.
Yeah, Joey's double fisting them cigarettes. They're sitting in a table in the now very quiet Cyberdelia. They're all there, and again, like I mentioned earlier, Serial Killer is showing all of his hacker books to Johnny Lee Miller and see if he knows them, to test his knowledge.
Dade Murphy is such a good hacker that if you show him a book, he can tell you what it is. If you show this motherfucker a book with a man with a pink shirt on it, he can say, that's the pink shirt book.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of
so fucking hacking.
Good Will Hunting, this scene is not. Although now I'm obsessed with the idea of Johnny Lee Miller with this accent playing Will Hunting and just you like apples? How do you like them apples?
Really, because I'm picturing him as Rain Man now.
I honestly could unironically see someone casting Johnny Lee Miller as Dustin Hoffman's part in Rain Man and something.
That is the nicest way you could have phrased that.
I just think it would be a good part.
There was a lot of politically incorrect things you could have said. I just want to praise you.
Sure, thank you. I appreciate that. They're discussing what they're doing. Joey's trying to be cool with the cool kids. He's like, "Oh, I hacked into a bank and all this stuff," and they're all like,
"Did it from his house."
They're ragging on him.
Not what you do.
And you never hack it from your house. Where are you, an idiot?
Universally.
And they say, "Well, you got." What do you say?
I said universally stupid, man.
Universally. Yes. Like, what you got to do is you got to pull a really righteous hack.
Mm-hmm.
Do they ever go into like what the criteria for a righteous hack entails?
3 miracles. Confirmed. Oh shit! No, that's sainthood. I'm sorry.
I was going to say that overcomplicates things. Another thing that I wanted to talk about, if we're going to be hackers, we need to talk about like what kind of righteous hacks we got to do.
Yeah.
And miracles is a bit outside of my pay grade.
Your David Lynch connection for this movie is that there's a bunch of patches on Matthew Lillard's Serial Killer's like giant trench coat. And you can barely see it, but on the back of it, there's like a giant patch of Frank from Blue Velvet. It was cut off of a t-shirt, and part of the graphic is also the text, "Don't you fucking look at me."
Do you think this is why he's in The Return? Do you think David Lynch saw hackers and is like, "Oh, Sonny Boy's a fan"?
I've wondered that since I learned this.
It's like here you like my pictures.
When I made Blue Velvet, I had an image in my brain of Dennis Hopper's face on a coat, and I could never make it work in a movie. But this genius in the pigtails, he made it happen. He made it happen.
Frank Booth's original name was the Plague.
I would not have been surprised, because the original idea for Frank Booth is that he wouldn't have been sucking on what he's actually sucking on in the movie. He would have been sucking on helium, so all of his threatening lines would have been really high pitch. It wouldn't have surprised me at all if they had repeated that idea, recycled that idea for Fisher Stevens' character in this movie. and just had him be like,
Fear not, it is I am here.
like that would have been just the weird fucking thing that his character would have done. Speaking of which, that night, to prove that he is in fact an elite hacker, Joey goes to hack the Gibson, a infamously difficult computer to hack into, I guess.
Named after cyberpunk godfather William Gibson, of course.
Yes. We get a big montage, and this is when we get into the practical effect I was talking about earlier. We did see a bit of it in the opening title sequence. Throughout several scenes when they're hacking, specifically when they hack the Gibson, it's visualized by this shot of them going down, basically a Star Wars trench run through a gigantic circuit board.
Yeah.
CGI was not a thing at the time, really. Like, it existed.
Did
but
they
wasn't
do
a
the
thing.
Escape from New York thing where they built it out of styrofoam and like lit it up?
Well, I don't know about what they built it out of, but they did make a practical set of a circuit board and literally like just had a camera like fly through the bit and shot all this basically B-roll footage of this cyberpunk cityscape that they included in the film. I took the effect for granted when I saw the film, just like I didn't even think about it. In the world of where we live in, where CGI is so ubiquitous, it's easy to let things like that slide. But they had to put a lot of work into making that look as good as it actually does. And again, as I said in the opening when I first mentioned this practical effect, it's incredibly impressive. I don't know why it's there. It doesn't really do much for the movie in general. Well, actually, I do know why it's there. The director, and this is where I want to get into the director's bit for a second. The director had no interest in making this movie, but he was given a script that allowed him to film in nightclubs, as Steven said, and he was like, "Hey, that's enough." And he was like, "Hey, I made the Beatles biopic based on my love of the '60s. I really loved that source material. I don't have any connection to this, but what if I envision the 90s are the 60s?
What if George Harrison had an iMac?
And the hackers, instead of being hackers, because I don't understand what the hell that is, the hackers are 60s rock stars."
The director liked about the 90s was fetish clubs.
Yes.
Well, there's elements of that in here.
There is a lot of elements of that moving
There's a lot
forward,
of that.
especially, yeah.
Wait, was who wrote The Hellbound Heart?
Clive Barker?
Was the director Clive Barker?
No, this would be a much better film if the director was
This would be a
Clive
way
Barker.
better movie. Oh my god, I want to see Clive Barker's Hackers.
Oh man, the computer would have been made out of blood.
We have such hacks to show you.
But yeah, so
Jesus coded.
Specifically, the character played by Fisher Stevens, who's called Plague, who's introduced in the scene. The Plague. He went out and he did all the research he was supposed to do. He took skateboarding classes. He took typing classes. He met with other hackers. He showed up on set and was introduced to his costume, which I believe he described as like a vampire. And he was like, what's going on? They're like, this is how you're... And the director had this idea that in order for him to understand the script, because he had no idea what he was doing, he was like, I'll just imagine for my sake, and I'll film it this way, that all of the hackers are actually 60s rock stars. The Plague is Jim Morrison. And whenever they're hacking, they're not hacking, they're doing LSD. And he said that he took...
Why isn't this movie better?
And he said that he took inspiration for the hacking scenes from the ending of 2001: A Space Odyssey and wanted to make them feel like, oh my god, they're full of stars. Like that sort of moment. Which is why he created all of these weird visuals with like traveling through the circuit board and the flashing lights and all this
equations through the time tunnel.
Yes, all that stuff.
It's been a hot minute. Is any of that in 2001? I mostly remember him like popping Mr. Pibb cans and this somehow shuts down Hal.
He goes through a Stargate. He goes through a psychedelic.
Oh, yes. Okay. So like after the Hal stuff. Yeah.
After he kills his best friend.
Did you think I meant that he hacks the planet in 2001?
I was trying to think what hacking there was in 2001, and they did fight a supercomputer, so it seemed like maybe.
David, you're not elite enough.
He's trying to hack into the system, and this receives the ire of Penn Jillette.
Yep.
Who took
a break from doing magic for 6 minutes to be in this movie.
Penn Jillette's was a weird get. One of the hackers that they had working on the movie as a consultant invited Penn Jillette to be in the movie.
Oh, okay.
Because they were friends. Because when hacking first became a thing, Penn Jillette put out a announcement to say, any hackers, hack into my computer and find the instructions on how to meet me. And had a hacker meetup.
Oh, cool.
Became friends with all these hackers way before they became a little more mainstream. So Penn Jillette was just a big fan of the hacker culture, and he got to be in the movie.
That's neat.
So this is the character where the Plague.
Yes.
Not Penn Jillette.
Yes.
Who is a fucking fulcrum of this movie.
Yeah, he's barely in the movie at all, so it's really weird that there's so much behind-the-scenes material about Penn Jillette being in the movie.
Well, actually, I'll talk about the Plague once he's more introduced.
Okay, but yeah, Penn Jillette picks up the phone and says, "Oh, gotta call the Plague," and then the Plague is introduced, and you can talk about it.
The Plague is a character, the most confusing character, because I have no clue whether the movie thinks he's cool,
right?
Whether we're supposed to think he's cool,
right?
Whether we're supposed to think he's intimidating,
or scary.
Whether is he supposed to be
lame as hell
because he works for a corporation, or is he supposed to be I don't fucking get it.
I will say, you do not cast Fisher Stevens if you're looking for an intimidating presence.
No, that's true. Yeah, that hairline is hella beta male.
Okay. I was just saying he's a comedic actor, so you cast him to play a part comedically.
That's what I was saying too.
Right. Okay. Sure. All right. But yeah, I waffled back and forth on the Plague in this movie. Half the time I was like, "Oh, I need this guy to shut up," and half the time I was just laughing my ass off in a very entertained whenever he was on screen. I wrote when he first entered, this is like an SNL sketch character idea for the god of the internet.
Yeah.
You need to hone in on that, because that is the heart and soul of hackers right there. He gets called up to the office.
Yeah.
These Jetsons doors slide open.
Yes.
Comes rolling in on a skateboard wearing full furs and an old-timey saloon vest. Rolls up to Penn Jillette, where they have a see-through neon green duo tandem keyboard so they can hack at the same time, Pacific Rim style.
That's exactly right. And the movie was almost even weirder. Plague, the original idea for Plague was that he would be played by Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah, I read that.
Yeah, so what the fuck that would have been.
But they wouldn't let him say the N-word, so he didn't want to do it.
Right, exactly. He didn't want to do it, and Billy Crystal didn't want to do it without bringing the brown-faced boy.
Fisher's there. Did he bring the shoe polish? No. Let me see what baby Josh Gad's doing.
Now, this also has one of my favorite lines, which is said with absolute conviction. He walks up and he says, "My name is the Plague." But shortly after that, he turns to Penn Jillette and he calls him a hapless techno-weenie without a hint of irony.
That's right.
He does say those words.
He does say those words exactly as you said them, trippingly on the tongue. And as another reference to the 60s and 60s drug rock and stuff like that, Joey's computer is named Lucy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he has a very special connection with Lucy. He kisses her.
He does. He makes out with her. Yeah. But he manages to download a garbage file, which is depicted in a very similar way, speaking of Quentin Tarantino, to the chest in Pulp Fiction. It's just a magical file full of a lot of the number pi for some reason. All of the codes flying by the screen.
It's a sacred number.
It is a sacred number.
I want to say something. Mm-hmm. If this movie were made in the 80s, Joey would be the main character.
Ooh.
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joey would be the hapless loser who doesn't quite get it, but stumbles on something big, and now he's embroiled in this whole thing.
And he would have been played by Ralph Macchio.
Sure.
Yeah.
Or one of the Coreys.
I'm nothing without a handle. Yeah, or one of the Coreys. One of the Coreys would be good too, yeah. No, the two Coreys would be they just have the two actors who played the Frog Brothers in Lost Boys just be the two hackers, and they're it's you have to pull off a really righteous hack. They then go, we then are introduced to another member of the hacker club when the gang goes to watch TV with their friend Lord Nikon. Mm-hmm. And while he's there, we get the first instance of a running gag that I won't bring up again probably. Matthew Lillard's character, serial killer, is always asking to stay with people. This is actually a weird, later addition to the movie. Matthew Lillard came on. They were encouraged to bring items from home and just like sort of make additions to their own wardrobe.
Yeah.
He came in with a toothbrush.
Oh, that's why he's always
carrying a toothbrush everywhere and brushing his teeth and stuff. And they asked him
I
why.
thought it was because he was a member of Ali's gang.
Ali's always getting blamed for things he didn't do. But yeah, so he...
Oh, they should have got Muhammad Ali to hack.
Oh my God.
Should have had boxing gloves when he does it.
It's like Strong Bad.
Ali's emails. But yeah, so...
Muhammad Ali, how do you type with boxing gloves on your hand?
But they asked him, and he said, well, in my head, my backstory for a serial killer is that his parents are just like awful people, and he's never sure where he's going to be sleeping tonight at any particular night. So he's always got his toothbrush with him. And the director thought that was such a cool detail that they just added a couple of extra scenes. They were like, hey, just have a bit where he's constantly asking people to stay with them. So that's where that bit came from, and I thought that was neat.
Cool.
It is weird, like the movie, like clearly there's a lot of passion and love from Steven about this movie. Brad and I had a much less positive experience, and I kind of looked at it as something like it's at first like sort of a cash grab film, but there clearly was a lot of passion and love for the ideas of this movie behind the scenes. And I think that is something to be admired.
The cast had like one comment, like when we got to this part of the scene, which I thought was interesting, which is that Lorson Mason, the guy who played an icon, apparently at the time there was a list of like the top 20 killers in Hollywood. These were like primarily black actors who had been killed the most or like killed other people the most on camera.
Yeah.
And he was on this list before he was 25. He thought this was a breakout role because the first time he was able to play somebody who like wasn't just a victim or wasn't just a generic assailant. And a lot of them thought that the casting in this film was like unusually representative.
Sure. And again, like you've been bringing up, it's hard to put ourselves back into that mid-90s mindset where it's like, oh, there's a black computerman?
Yeah.
This is groundbreaking.
That is
not
legit.
Since Superman 3.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, not since Superman 3. And even in Superman 3, they had to write in a whole backstory of like, he doesn't know why he's good at computers. He just kind of is. But yeah, no, that is legitimately cool for the time. But yeah, so but they're watching TV and they see an interview with hacker enemy #1 and certified boner Richard Gill.
Played by Wendell Pierce from The Wire.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Well, he does a good job.
He does, yeah.
Yeah, he's very, very silly in this movie. But they're watching the TV because somehow they know it's going to be on at this time, but it's a pirate TV show, so I don't know how you know when that's going to be on.
Called Hack the Planet.
Hack the Planet!
With Razor and Blade.
Who are either lovers or brothers. I'm not sure which.
Could be both.
Or
why limit them?
I think I'm going to limit them for that one.
Okay, fascist. Razor, of course, lost his original partner, Toka.
And of course, and this is probably the best detail in the entire movie in terms of like youth culture. Speaking to the youths.
Oh, the Jolt Cola?
The show is sponsored by Jolt Cola.
It's not sponsored.
They say sponsored.
Yeah, but it's not actually. They're being facetious. Yeah. Right. I just wanted you to understand the subtext of the film that me and Steven are operating on.
Right.
They're a bunch of jokesters.
All hackers have an obscene amount of disposable income to begin with and have literally nothing better to do with their time.
Yeah. And they say, remember, hacking isn't just a crime, it's a survival technique, which is another quote directly from the
Manifesto.
Hacking Manifesto. Then another quote, they talk about the evil of charging for a service that should be free.
Yeah.
They're talking about telephones.
Well, one of the quintessential hacker idioms, ideas, beliefs is information wants to be free.
Yes.
So
I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that. We then cut back to Joey. We cut back to Joey, who is taking a shower while wearing headphones like a monster.
Yeah, he has a little bit of a shower cap over his headphone bits.
Well, it's clearly he put them over the headphone bits, but they're already falling off by the time they.
No, it's not a fucking good idea on any. That's why Joey's our lovable hero.
Right. And then he's immediately arrested for this heinous act.
Yes.
By
Mr. Michael Pierce.
Yes.
There's like one framing thing in the shot which I really like, which is that there's like a Spock and Bones towel that Joey uses. And for like a large portion of the scene, it's in the foreground and it's positioned in a way to make it look like Spock is giving Joey side-eye as he's singing in the shower.
That's what you call mise en scène.
Yeah.
That's what you call that. Richard Gill arrives. He, as you said, he's the one who arrested Joey. His man Ray, his second in command Ray, tells him that they've seized an uncorrupted hard drive, and Gill says, "Speak English," which was so stupid it made my brain fall out of my head.
Okay. Let me tag me in.
Okay,
I'm going to take this over for you.
Go for it.
Two fucking stupid things about that. One, he is a Secret Service agent investigating computer crime.
Not only that, he's a hacker enemy number one, according to Matthew Lillard.
He should know literally anything about computers.
Mm-hmm.
The stupid thing number two, this exchange happens 80 fucking times in the movie where someone goes, "It's a computer." What? Speak English. It computes things. Thank you.
Rabbits, cancer, what is happening?
Oh, God, Lorraine Bracco. That's a whole other kettle of fish that we're going to be getting into.
There's a fish in the computer. We then cut to the Plague in a meeting with Margot, this woman who's very antagonistic towards him, and
Duke Ellingston.
Duke Ellingston?
That's his name.
Oh my God, I missed that somehow. But a whole bunch of people in work at this big conglomeration corporate.
At Zaibatsu Corp or whatever the fuck.
Sure. They work for the Umbrella Corporation.
Yes.
And they're all sitting there, and he reveals that Joey and and his accomplices, whoever they are, have created a virus called Da Vinci, which is programmed to go out and find robot oil tankers, which I don't think even existed in the 90s, and basically upend them. Just have them stink in the ocean and cause ecological devastation for miles.
Good plot. Good threat.
Yeah.
Good threat.
What were you saying, Stephen?
Nothing. It's we're getting a little ahead, but as we established like a minute later, there is no manual control on any vehicles in this 90s that never happened.
I thought that was a great detail where it's like, we're too reliant on technology. Now let's jerk off over technology the time.
But and they repeat a fact that they said earlier in the film, that the four most commonly used passwords are love, secret, sex, and God. In real life, in the four most commonly used passwords as of 2020 were 123456, 123456789, picture one, and password. And I have to imagine that they were the same passwords in the 94. I can't imagine that we've evolved that much as a species.
I only use one password. Blumpkin 007 exclamation point.
No 69s or 420s thrown in there?
I'm an adult.
You know what? I'm sorry. I deserve it.
You're lucky I don't leave. But Margot is played by Lorraine Bracco, who, in a movie of bad performances, somehow manages to outshine. God bless this woman for going above and beyond.
Giving the worst performance of the movie.
Yeah.
And she's fairly... Yeah, she is good. Like, she's a psychiatrist in The Sopranos, right?
Oh, yeah. She's Dr. Melfi. Yeah. She's one of my favorite characters.
She was in Goodfellas. She is capable.
Right. And in this movie, she just decided not to give a shit.
I wonder why. I could be working with Marty Scorsese right now.
And also, for some reason, every single scene she's in, she is dubbed, and it is the worst dubbing job you have ever seen in your life. It's just awful.
I did not notice it. I guess I just assumed it was terrible acting.
It adds to the roboticness of her performance because nothing that she says sounds real, because it's really not. It's her in a studio later on trying to match up to the footage, and most of the time you can't even see her mouth moving when she's doing it.
I did not know that, but that is funny.
It is really funny. But Plague, of course, is lying, because we know Joey. Joey's a good kid. He's our protagonist, after all.
He double fists cigarettes.
No
one smokes 2 cigarettes at a time who is not trustworthy.
No.
Abraham Lincoln.
Nobody.
Both listening a man who smoked 2 cigarettes at the same time and the man who said that phrase.
Nobody's better at fisting a cigarette than Joey. But Joey is...
That's what it says on his tombstone.
Yes.
But he died right after this movie. He was hit by a subway.
At Johnny Lee Miller and Angelina Jolie's wedding.
Yeah. There was a subway just cutting right through their wedding. Poor Joey, the character of Joey, not the actor. Some bizarre, horrifying thing where the movie was so real he came to life.
I mean, Brad said it himself. It's those blood rights you need to do if you're going to get into like the upper echelons of Hollywood.
Johnny Lee Miller went a little too far with his fucking Lovecraftian shenanigans.
But yeah, Joey hasn't been sinking oil tankers. That'd be crazy. The plague has.
Also, let's take a minute to talk about how involved the virus for Da Vinci is.
Sure.
It involves a CGI model of Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, Stephen.
No, there was an actor. They hired an actor to stand in for their illegal virus.
Had someone do mocap. The plague went out and bought a mocap suit. And here's the best part of all this. Is this was like a plan B that he threw together at the last minute to just like, oh shit, someone has the information. I need to hire an actor, get a mocap suit, render this.
He's the best, folks. He's the best.
It's like, and he killed that actor because he can't have a trait.
Right? Yeah. Right. Yeah, it's like Putin's plastic surgeon. You got to kill him.
Yeah.
But yeah, so essentially in that garbage file that Joey got, there's some sort of information that he doesn't want getting out. And so in order to get the FBI to arrest Joey and give him the hard drive, he had to make up a scenario where he needed to get the hard drive to save the world.
Fucking Occam's razor. Fucking the most obvious solution is the right one.
You know, I gotta say, the first draft of Book of Henry was so much better than what we
That's
ended
a
up
reference.
With. Yeah.
It bears mentioning, like, after this meeting, they have to go and loudly discuss their criminal plans in the middle of an escalator.
Which happens in a lot of movies, to be
Yes. But it is a very hacky thing.
I'm surprised. Do you think the plague, not Fisher Stevens, is annoyed by stairs and escalators because he can't skateboard down them?
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's seen.
Like, I'm surprised that Zaibatsu Corp didn't like install fucking ramps for him. Like,
it's like one.
Like it'd be Google. It would have been fucking Google.
Oh my god! They literally just cut, and he's like, "Oh my god, I gotta get downstairs," and they cut to just a spiral ramp. He's just going down all 50 flights of stairs.
Google is what happened.
Pneumatic tubes designed just for this man.
The plague is just Trevor Moore's character from that one Scrumbly Bubbles sketch. It's just rest in power, Trevor Moore. Anyway,
Google is just what happens when the plague becomes CEO.
We then, if you hadn't gotten enough of the Hacker's Manifesto at this point, we cut to an FBI agent actually reading it. The only thing that's actually communicated about the plot in this scene is that Joey is being watched by the FBI, but they can't actually watch him doing anything because his mom's grounded him.
Also, the FBI agent Ray is played by Latin superstar Mark Antony.
Is that...
That's true.
Okay. I don't know who Mark Antony is.
Have you heard of Mark Antony?
I've heard of him. I don't remember what he did for the life of me.
All I know is I believe he was married to Jennifer Lopez.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And he is a Latin superstar.
Good for him.
Much like my brain wife, Rosie Perez.
Your brain wife.
Yep.
They read pretty extensively from the Hacker Manifesto, which Mark Antony thinks is pretty cool. Yep. And the bald white guy reading it says, nah, it's commie garbage. They're doing more research trying to find out who Joey's accomplices are. They find out about Crash, and he hands a file, and someone hands a file to the plague, and he says, ew, hard copy.
Yeah. I'd much prefer a floppy diskette.
Oh, floppy disks do get their time to shine later.
Oh, yeah.
But so they burst into Crash's home in a moment that must have felt very nostalgic for Crash. And instead of arresting him, they just break into his house and they're like, let's sit down and talk.
And again, here's where I once read this book that I enjoyed well enough as a high school student, early college student, called Guns, Drugs, and Monsters. And in it, it's a character, Cal McDonald, who has apparently been in a bunch of stuff by the same author. But at one point, he's going into a teenage boy's room as part of his investigation. And there's this bit in the book where it's like the kid has a bong and he picks it up and he hits it. And the writing's like, yeah, this will make him respect me or think I'm cool. And I'm like, no, no, I don't think so. I think you misunderstand kids.
Yeah.
So I get a lot of that vibe from this, like, yeah, I'm going to come into your room and I'm going to be like sort of cock of the walk, but you're going to think I'm a cool contemporary.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, he's definitely like trying to. I think, though, that it is a little bit intentional in this. I think in this scene it is.
Okay.
At least on a script level, if not a direction level, because like the plague comes in. He calls the FBI agent a moron or something like that. And he's like, you and me, we're the same. And we get this sort of idea that the plague is sort of the Joker to Crash's Batman. There's like a sort of like two sides of the same coin situation going on, where they're both incredibly skilled with computers. You can't really call the plague a hacker, but like at least not a white hat hacker, maybe a black hat hacker. But
look at you with terminology.
Yeah.
That's the one bit of terminology I know. But and only because Kaylee told me about it last night. But I'm married to someone cool. I'm not cool. But they're talking about this stuff, and the philosophy that he basically espouses is this sort of very one exceptional human idea, whereas the hacking manifesto is this very sort of egalitarian idea about society. He has this idea about like we hackers are the Ubermensch. Yeah, he literally says every man is a country unto himself, but we can make an alliance for now if you want.
Which is a great sell. To be like, hey, I'm a giant asshole with
basically
ties. Let's make a tie.
It's still very on the nose, very sort of silly writing that was written by a man who wrote a Stephen King sequel.
Yes.
But like it's like you can see where idea.
There are flashes.
The concepts at play are good ones.
There are flashes. Yeah. Like I said, I love the phone freaking. I love the bits of the manifesto. I love this idea of like, yeah, you can turn your skills to not be about freeing information, be about serving the highest bidder. But again, the movie doesn't lean into that.
Sure. And I feel the scene does end on a good button. I like it. I like the way the scene ended because Crash doesn't buy what the plague is selling, and the plague, acting like the petulant asshole that he is, when confronted with something that might prove that he's not quite the slick customer that he thinks he is, responds with rage and just picks up a baseball bat and smashes Crash's stereo, to which Crash has
just like Do the Right Thing.
Oh my god.
The parallels.
Your mind wife Rosie Perez.
Crash Override was the 94, 95, 96, 95 Radio Raheem. Spike Lee said it himself, I'm sure.
Spike Lee famously recorded the commentary for Hackers.
Yes, he did. Like, now Rosie Perez didn't want to be nude for this thing, but I was like, you should do it.
Yeah, they just took the commentary from
Do the Right Thing, and they still have Chuck D like introducing people as like Joie Lee. That's a deep cut if you've listened to the Criterion Collection commentary for Do the Right Thing.
Right. But yeah, he smashes Crash's stereo with a baseball bat, prompting Crash to have the most realistic reaction he has in the whole movie. He's like, hey, Christ!
Oh, blimey!
Bloody hell!
Me boomily box!
Blapoon! So they go to they then go to a house party that Crash has not been invited to at Kate's.
Yeah. Which I don't like.
No, that's just a bad...
All the hacking is fine.
That's a party foul.
Just fucking gross.
That's a party foul right there. I say this is a man who's never been to a party.
Someday I'll throw a party and you will come, and technically it will be a party.
No, that sounds
You
sad.
can have a white wine spritzer.
So they go to the house party at Kate's. Lord Nikon feels that he has a photographic memory.
In the creepiest way possible.
So, quick thing. When they shot the scene, 11 times in a row, he said he had a photogenic memory, and the only thing that the entire cast remembered at late reunions was how much they wanted to murder him.
That's a shame, because he gotten murdered so much, he was on that list.
Oh, God.
Again, layers to these Raphael scripts.
So much meta commentary in this movie.
This is also the moment...
What is Dade wearing in this scene? He's got like this giant orange pool floater, maybe? It looks like an inflation vest.
See, here's where the movie is very prescient, because all their fashion looks just as ugly as the fashion in the game Cyberpunk 2077.
Famous for the amount of life preservers people are wearing is Cyberpunk 2077.
Fingers on the pulse of a nation.
Yeah.
Absolutely, on the pulse of something. And this is also the bit when Serial says, "Look at that pooper!"
She says, "What a pooper."
What a pooper!
I wrote it down because I fucking hate it so much.
What a pooper. This is spandex. That's a gift, man.
I want to ogle a woman's backside without thinking about its biological function. That's my right as an alpha male. I've already established it.
Hey.
God bless the USA.
Serial killer.
Eagle screech.
Serial killer is allowed as kinks. Serial killer is...
Just don't call it a pooper. That's gross.
Hey.
That's...
Don't shame.
Gross.
Don't shame.
I'll shame.
Okay. I viewed it as he is the Jughead of this universe. He is just innately asexual. All he sees is the utilitarian function of all things.
Well, if he's Jughead, he should have a crown hat. And he should be eating hamburgers.
I will say Matthew Lillard as Jughead makes too much sense in my head.
They should have cast him as Riverdale. And he would have been... I've never seen Riverdale, but I assume only slightly older than the actors that they have on Riverdale.
Pretty much, yeah.
They go into Kate's room.
Where
she has a righteous setup.
To mess with her righteous setup.
And again, just barging into this woman's bedroom.
Right. And Kate and Curtis come in and...
this is literally Curtis's only function, is to get Kate into this bedroom.
Really, yeah, exactly. Curtis...
He literally walks out of the fucking movie after this.
He walks out of the scene and he evaporates from existence. There's never a moment when there's ever me and Curtis broke up. They forget that this character exists.
He's like the therapist in the room.
Sure, yeah, just and he's gone.
Oh,
I feel like there's a subtext here because Kate's mom writes these emotional self-help books for women, which are all men are emotional amoebas, they're stupider than dogs. Curtis is that. He is her mom's concept of what the perfect man could be, easily controlled, easily tamed, unlike the stallion, which is Dade.
So we are saying that this movie is very sort of men's rights then.
No. I think...
No, he's saying that Curtis is just young, dumb, and full of cum.
No, I get it, but from a screenwriting standpoint, when you write she has her head too full of self-help books written by other women, and they don't understand what real men need to be.
Whoa. You're putting...
a man, Crash, a real man is going to teach her what's what. He's going to make her wear a dress.
I think you're misunderstanding what Steven is saying.
Yeah, you're missing the intentions of Rick Steve here.
I understand what you're saying. I'm saying that I'm getting a better understanding of what the screenwriter is saying.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm not saying that that's what you're saying. I'm saying that's what the movie is saying by doing this.
Dave is a kind of alpha male she never believed could exist. He challenges her emotionally. Yes, exactly. We are the new flesh.
I need to show you Videodrome. That's on your canon list.
Yes, no, that's on my list. That's on my list.
I've now cracked down on Billy and being okay, you need to see these movies. We got to watch Faster Pussycat Kill Kill. We got to watch Videodrome. You need
Crunk and you need your Cronenberg. We're going to do Crunkenberg one of these nights.
Crunkenberg Mondays? Is that what you said? Because that might be the best thing you've ever said.
Oh, well, thank you. It's a short list.
Anyway, but Kate
Kate and Curtis come in. They're making out. They're about to fuck.
The rest of the crew is happy to just watch them fuck.
Yeah,
Crash is, to his credit, the only one who stands up is hey.
Well, no. The only reason he says anything is one of them calls her like burn or
Yes.
acid burn or something.
No,
He's like,
that happens later.
no,
I have notes. I have like a page
I
of
remember
notes.
exactly as it happens.
bitch. We have both watched this movie more than you.
It happens in this scene, but what happens is he breaks up the sex. She comes over and starts obsessing over her own computer.
No.
And then
No.
they say, "Oh, burn," and she says, "Oh,
No.
wait, that's burn."
I went through the movie twice because I was confused over this. This is the sequence. They are
No, it is the
looking at her
sequence,
personal files, and her
Yes.
OS/screensaver has her stupid flame symbol. And
Exactly.
so Dade is staring at that like, what? What? This reminds me of something. And
But they're
then-
also calling her burn.
No, that comes a second later. Nikon is looking at her, making out with her boyfriend. He goes, Burns' hardware matches her software.
Yes.
At which point, Dade stupidly, just instinctively goes, burn?
Burn?
Actually,
Acid burn?
Kate
Okay.
looks up.
I'll take
Dade
it.
still doesn't get it yet. Here's the thing. He only gets
Okay.
it 2 lines later when Freak says, it's okay, Burn. He's my guest. And then finally he goes, your acid burn?
That's what confused me. Okay, that's what I was remembering is that 2 lines later bit. I just remembered him saying something loudly to break it.
Save your mea culpas for your apology podcast.
The after show where I apologize for everything.
And walking weird with Chris Hardwick.
Right.
Initially,
And
I thought that her symbol needed to have shown up in their initial hacking battle at the beginning. It doesn't. This is the first time he's ever seeing it.
Oh my god, that's so stupid.
It is.
But not quite as stupid as the next bit. The worst line, in my opinion, that Matthew Lillard says in the whole movie, where they realize who each other are and where they know each other from. And Sears says, "Wait, crash and burn." And I wrote, and the writer just immediately comes. Just like, hey, oh man, I wrote this clever thing into my script, but what if they don't get it? I better have one of the characters say it.
You're in the butter zone now, baby.
So we cut to the Plague, who's researching Crash's background. Only now does he realize that he lives with his mom, despite the fact that he's been in Crash's house.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, good work with the Plague.
1 second.
Now that Crash and Burn know that they are hackers,
They have some real shitty sexual chemistry.
real shitty chemistry.
Man, it's so shitty.
Burn is
It's like someone trying to just force a limp dick into
God.
a hole in Swiss cheese.
God.
I just
But
want
yeah,
to jump back to you saying that Jolie is the best actor in this film. I do think that
Yes.
she says, I hope you don't screw like you type, about as well as any human
does.
can deliver that line.
that's what I'm saying. Like, the dialogue that she's given is not good. She manages to still come off as a cool punk kid, despite the fact that these lines should disqualify her from being that forever.
She is giving off heat.
Yeah.
Sort of just by virtue of being Angelina Jolie.
Yeah.
But also she is doing some lifting.
Yeah. No, she's definitely
it's
doing
just
better than he is.
Johnny Lee Miller just being like, sex words.
Yeah, exactly. Steven, you were about to say something?
I was going to say, I just want to jump back to this whole, is Dade supposed to be cool or not cool? Because I feel like that whole section there, you can't interpret that as him being cool or good with women. Dade just sucks.
Dade does suck, it's true.
But are you meeting the movie more than halfway? Does Dade suck because Johnny Lee Miller sucks in this movie? Or is this supposed to be really sexually tense and but again,
there's the bit where in the movie it comes off as Dade sucking, but I can see the writer thinking that it would go a different way. So she says in this scene, at the end of it, they challenge each other to a hack off.
Yes.
A hacking competition.
Now, when I was in a cult, that
Yes.
meant something different.
Right.
But
we're on hackers now.
gotcha.
It's okay. You can let that go. You
Yeah,
can let that
no,
part of
it's
your
all
life
right.
go. But anyway, so we're in hackers, and they're doing a hack off, and they're trying to decide on the stakes.
Oh, okay, yes, you're getting to it.
They're trying to decide on the stakes. She says, "If I win, you have to be my slave. You have to be my slave."
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "Your slave?" And she says, "You wish." Now, it's not communicated well at all because he doesn't say slave in any kind of suggestive way, but I can see that line as being something where the writer is imagining like a this is going to sound ridiculous, a Roger Moore type, just being like sort of like very suggestive. It was oh, you're a slave, eh? You know, just like very suave and sophisticated. And instead, in the actual movie, you get you're a slave. So I can see it going both ways. It's very much right on that line. Where I don't, like you say, I don't know what the intention is. It definitely comes across like he's a weird creep.
This film was designed so that we'd be discussing its nuances 30 years later.
It's a real Rorschach test of a film. Like it's what you project onto it. It's
this whole movie is the cave from Empire Strikes Back. You only bring with it what you only find what you take with you.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, Byrne wins. Crash. If Byrne wins, Crash becomes her slave, but like just like her copy boy, doing like menial tasks for her. And if Crash wins, he gets to go on a date with Byrne. Ooh, and
nothing's better than a forced date.
Yeah, and she has to smile. That'll show her.
Oh, ladies, smile more. That's what my bumper sticker says.
Cool people ask ladies to smile.
And then, as a side note, one of them says we have to do this for Joey, which is never mentioned again.
Yes, so we cut to a montage of them getting ready, and their friends are discussing the rules in voiceover, and one of them says that the part of it that they're doing is the competition is they have to
they're going after Richard Gill.
Who can get Richard Gill the best? Who can get Richard Gill the best? And they say we got to get one for Joey. That's when they say that, and the preparation is interesting. Byrne. We see Byrne basically just doing a lot of research, and she's meditating, and then we cut to some of the funniest shit I've ever seen in my life of Crash spray paint camouflaging his keyboard, I assume so they can't find him, and practicing quick drawing his floppy disks and recreating the taxi driver "Are you talking to me?" scene in the mirror.
See, I wish I could appreciate how fucking incredibad this is.
This is so incredibad. This is so dumb.
I wish like I still had... The first time I watched this, full disclosure.
Yes.
I was 2 days after my birthday, and I'd gone out for karaoke the night before, and I was super hungover.
Sure.
Which is why I rewatched the movie, because I was like, well, was I just in a bad mood when I watched this? Mm-hmm. No. Sorry, Steven.
It's all right.
But I watched, like, I just couldn't appreciate how fucking stupid this is.
It is very stupid.
It is so stupid.
If this had come earlier, if this had set a tone, I think I would feel much different about this movie.
I will say it would have. I agree, at least on the level that if we had found out that Kate was acid burn way earlier in the movie, and the whole film became sort of a prank war sort of bit where she and Crash are doing the hack off the whole movie that eventually ends with them sort of finding out about this greater cause, teaming up and fighting the real enemy. Yeah. That would have been a much better arc for both characters.
Sure.
There's a note I have about this, which I think really like highlights something central to like the core of this film. And that is Dave's computer.
Something sensual.
Oh, no, very. So... Dade has this giant, like, 80-pound computer he takes with him everywhere. That's what he spray paints, like, the camouflage colors to give it its war paint. Apparently, not many of these were made. Right before laptops became the standard, there were, like, a few companies which were like, nobody wants laptops. They want an 80-pound computer that's technically portable. Now, what he has doesn't exist, and that's because these computers have, like, a tiny little trackball to, like, the lower right of the screen, and the prop master was like, this won't do it all. Dade is like the best of the hackers. So he has to have like an alpha computer that's bigger than theirs. But more than that, it can't have like a normal dinky trackball. So they super glued like a different, like full-size trackball onto the size of this machine.
Oh my god.
There's like this weird like hyper compensation in like just the prop design, which I think really gets to like the core of like the whole hackers thing.
So this movie, that pretty much sums up the whole movie. Is like, hey, reality isn't good enough for us.
And I just want to give a shout out to the trackball, my favorite '90s computer peripheral that no one fucking had. There was some free demo of a game where it was like, you can use a trackball, and it's like, trackball, tell me more.
I'm the one guy. I was trackball loyalist.
You had a trackball?
I had a trackball through college. I had a trackball up until about 5 years ago.
What did you do with it? Just play Golden Tee all day?
No. I got on MAME and I did those old bowling sims.
Oh, fun.
That actually does sound really fun, to be honest.
Nice shout out to MAME.
Yes.
Nice shout out to MAME. MAME.
You don't know what MAME is.
I have no idea what MAME is. I'm just trying to be
She's
cool.
an auntie. That's who MAME is.
I'm not elite. I'll never be elite. I don't deserve the handle that I came up with earlier.
It's Mamie Van Doren's emulating system.
Just boot it up and start. They start. There's another whole montage of him going after
They
this
just
guy.
keep one-upping.
They
each
go
other.
after his bank accounts. Crash sends a bunch sends advertisements out
The
claiming that
sex
he
perverts.
wants to be with gay people.
The website is
transvestites.
called Future Sex Contacts, which I think is the quaintest 90s name for a porn site I could think of.
Yeah. Technically, everyone is a potential future sex contact.
Sure. Yeah.
That's what makes a life worth living. Future Sex Contact is my favorite Kraftwerk album.
Sure. Byrne changes his record so that he's wanted for a DUI, which for some reason they have to do on top of the Empire State Building. And this causes Serial to howl like a wolf.
Yeah.
Lillard is actually hanging off the side of the Empire State Building. He is leaning over the side of a guardrail no one is supposed to lean over.
He's so crazy, man.
I don't know if that's an accomplishment, but it seems worth mentioning.
Sure.
James Cameron saw this scene and was like, but what if he did it on the Titanic? And that became that scene. So here's something, a lot of people who talk about this movie, this movie has a legit fan base. Yeah. Again, cult movie.
We're talking to the fan base.
We're talking to the fan.
We're talking to the president of the fan club.
I don't know when to bring this up, so because this is audio, Steven is wearing a pog hat, and that's so beautiful to me that I need the listeners to know.
You're the only one who's described this as beautiful, so thank you. Waiting 20 years for that.
Again, this movie has a big fan base. One of the things I hear the most is, oh man, even if you don't like the movie, the soundtrack is awesome. I kind of hated the soundtrack.
Oh.
I was ambivalent. Aside from the Rage Against the Machine ripoff we get later.
Yeah, you do get that, and that was I enjoyed that just because I like Rage Against the Machine. But what, Steven, what do you think about the soundtrack?
I think personally, I'm with Brad. I think that I feel kind of ambivalent. I think that if you like electronica, what you have here is good, and I think that it creates. I don't know that you get the Prodigy in other movies if they don't show up here first.
That's
Whether
fair.
or not that's good, I don't know. But I feel as though this opens doors that eventually lead to the Matrix soundtrack down the line.
Sure, it opened doors for the Prodigy.
Yes.
Absolutely, and I have heard that one of the things that the director bragged about with this movie is that he got a lot of people that he wouldn't have been able to afford later because they were just on the up and coming, but and then they became very big later on. So maybe I just don't appreciate the classics. But, okay, so Crash fakes Gil's death, and then they up the stakes. Now, not only is the date and the slave thing happening, but whoever loses has to wear a dress. And then when they show the dress that they're going to wear, it's not a dress, it's lingerie.
It's a pleather bikini.
It's a pleather bikini, which is not what a dress is.
Well, that is at least what Acid Burn is going to make Crash Override wear.
Right.
Gotcha.
Because she brought it to school and put it in her locker.
Right.
Like a normie.
Plague sends another message to Crash saying that people like them are samurai.
They're keyboard cowboys.
And
which
everyone
is
else is
straight
cattle.
Which is straight fucking William Gibson, straight fucking Neil Stephenson. The idea of we're the lone samurai.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Someday I'll have to lend you Snow Crash.
Okay.
And force you to read that.
Okay. I will say that I again, talking about whether or not the Plague is supposed to be cool, I don't know if he's supposed to be cool. He is definitely supposed to be I think that he is supposed to be a legitimate temptation for Crash.
It's
legitimate Satan.
The Last Temptation of Crash, my favorite Scorsese.
No, you're right. He's hacker devil. He's trying to lure. He is what Dade could be if he just accepted his inner nature.
Come over to Zaibatsu Corp. Take the corporate money. Suck at the corporate teeth.
Exactly.
The information wants to be NFT.
We get a brief scene that just refers to the fact that Joey's mom has decided that he's not grounded anymore, just for no reason. And so he immediately runs like an idiot to Ramon or Phantom Freak to give him the file, the floppy disk with the garbage file on it, leading the FBI right to him.
Yeah.
But at least,
Joey's the best.
Yeah, Joey's the best. He's our hero. But Phantom Freak is able to get away just long enough that he's able to hide the disc in the place where he hid that thing that one time,
which is in a men's room
behind a condom dispenser.
Did you guys have condom machines in like your school bathrooms? Is this a thing? Which I'm just
when I was homeschooled?
On the compound, no. On the compound, sex was only procreation.
Right. Yeah.
In my high school, no. And I went to a bad high school.
Mm-hmm. I assume at the Christian high school you went to, no, as well.
I went to Twin Valley. I mean, not as a student, but I was there for like events, and they didn't have condom dispensers either. And I was like, is this like a California thing? What?
Was this supposed to be at the school? Was this in like a subway? I was not. There was no sense of place for this scene.
It was in the
That's
school.
A good point. Yeah, but no, I think it is the high school.
I'm pretty sure it was in the high school, but that's because when the scene first begins, I thought she was in a locker room. And I realized it wasn't, but my brain was still like, this is school.
No, it kind of is.
I might be off.
Because there's like a bully shoving a kid into a locker, and if you look carefully, you'll see the whole wall wobble when he gets shoved into the locker.
Of course.
That could happen at a subway, too,
That's true.
Not just the transportation location, but the restaurant.
Yeah.
Hackers
Absolutely.
is a glowing indictment of our crumbling infrastructure. That is why this film was made.
It really is.
There's a lot of depth to this movie.
Yes, layers.
She gets it from behind the condom dispenser. She and Serial go to Crash for help, but he refuses because he is awful and I hate him.
Because of script, he read the script and he's like, "Oh, I need to refuse at this point."
Yeah.
Also, why the fuck do they need Crash?
Right. They try and make it a big deal, like, "Oh man, I can't. I'm on parole. I can't get in trouble again." It's like, well, why did you hack Fox News then in the opening?
Well, it wasn't Fox News.
Right. No,
it was OTV.
Okay. So it's OAN. But she. And Serial, we already did that. But he at least agrees to copy the disc for them.
Mm-hmm.
The Plague says he's going to fuck up Crash's mom's life if he doesn't get him.
He's going to replace her file with some convict, and she would go directly to jail. Do not pass go, not collect 100 cyberbucks. Crash
attempts to give the disc to the Plague and saying something like, none of the other guys could figure out what this was. They needed me to hack it. They're not important. You shouldn't touch them.
Is this the part where the Plague, like the fucking shadow, comes out of the darkness,
comes out of the mist
on his wheelie board and snatches the floppy?
Yes,
Story
he does.
time.
That's exactly.
Like it's 5 years ago.
And then
the first time I ever see this, I'm walking through a room. My sister's watching it on like Movies or Comet or one of the local channels we have here. And this is the scene I walk into. And like I see Dade standing there in the middle of this misty street wearing his like stupid cyber tech jacket. And I already think this is the dumbest thing. Then without any context, car rolls out of the mist. There is a man crouched down on a skateboard, clinging to like the rear view mirror. And then with that, Dade holds out a floppy disk. The guy, still clinging to the car, grabs it and then tells the guy in the car to hit the gas and whooshes off. And this is when I fell in love with this movie. This is just a single, perfect scene devoid of context for me.
Now, I understand that. I understand that. That makes a lot of sense to me.
That actually gives me a lot of context.
If that had been... Again, if they had front-loaded the movie with stuff like that, if I hadn't had to go through like an hour to get to that, I would be right on board with you. Because, again, this is a fucking ridiculous scene.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's goddamn insane that anyone put this on film was like, God, we're making pictures, aren't we?
It is sort of a thing where it's like the really fun, goofy bits happen at the end. And if your first introduction to the movie are those early scenes where you're just kind of learning, oh no, Crash is who we have to follow for this movie.
Yeah.
Like by the time I get through those first couple scenes, I'm very tired. And then you get to the really fun bits and you have to but having now, when you started the movie, you already knew what was coming. So you could be like, none of this matters. The skateboarding man is coming.
Right. You know you're getting to this point.
Christmas.
The question is not like where we end up. The question is like, what is the journey that led us to this moment?
Exactly. The movie should have opened with that scene, and then just like, I bet you're all wondering how I got here. And it cuts back to the opening. But yeah, so
I bet you're all wondering how I got here. As Johnny Lee Miller would say.
Exactly.
In his Scottish English accent.
In his Scottish English Beatles accent, yes. But yes, Crash gives away the disc to the skateboarding meanie. And then we cut. He tries to go and tell his hacker friends what he did, but they're too busy trying to hack the part of the program they were still able to copy. And there's another big montage. This is where we get the Metropolis poster. They realize that the garbage file is hiding a worm that the Plague is using to eat little bits of decimal points off of money transactions throughout the company.
Superman 3,
which is
Office Space.
Office Space, and a whole bunch of other stuff. They are like, we gotta hack the Gibson, and there becomes like almost the beginning of a musical number where everyone say, if I hack the Gibson, I can get there in a half an hour. If I hack the Gibson, I can get there in 20 minutes.
If I join
10, 5.
And it's just this dumb shit where it's like, yeah, you're all friends. You're all part of this fucking hacker posse. Like, why wouldn't you help? Why does Lord Nikon be like, yeah, well, if I grace you with my photographic memory to scam on chicks, you can get in there in 5 minutes. Yeah. Like, okay, why do we? It's like when a band is about to play an encore. It's like we have to clap for the prerequisite amount of time. Before they come out. And again, Peter Jackson saw this and was like, I know exactly what I'm doing for the end of Return of the King.
Fellowship of the Ring and Lord of the Rings. It's like, and my bow and my axe. It's the same thing.
Gotcha. I've never seen the films.
Oh, that's right. You haven't.
That's okay. Hackers is a trilogy unto itself. The first film, the rivalry between Dade and Kate. A very brief second film is them taking on Agent Gill. And now this final third act is like an entirely different narrative.
I do think that there's a lot of overlap between the characters of Sauron and the Plague, personally.
I think Acid Burn and Crash Override's relationship really mimics J.R.R. Tolkien's and C.S. Lewis's. Right down to the fucking.
I remember
and
when Tolkien wrote, mess with the best, die like the rest.
That's my favorite part of the Silmarillion. But yeah, so... Plague, who somehow just knows what they're doing at all times, even though there's no way.
Because he's so elite.
He's so elite. He's like
he's like Justice Alito.
He has Penn Jillette reading all their Twitters off screen.
Yeah. Oh, boss. But yeah, so Plague decides
to great Penn Jillette.
Thank you. I thought it was pretty good.
Now do your teller. Oh, comedy.
Yeah. Plague decides to launch the Da Vinci virus as a distraction, I guess, or something.
Lorraine Bracco's like, no, you can't do that. The environment.
Perfect. I
mean, that actually is pretty close to Lorraine Bracco in this film.
It's like I was living the scene in that moment.
So they decide to go to a club to find Razor and Blade.
Yes.
This is where we get the Rage Against
the Machine knockoff. Here's the thing. They go to find Razor and Blade.
Yes.
And Crash is told this. And Crash is like, those guys are flakes. Why are they flakes, Crash?
Yeah.
Why do you think they're flakes? Steven, do you have an answer?
I imagine he's jealous. There are posters everywhere in Cyberdelia. And like, little incel energy Dave is like, why isn't that me? Why can't they recognize me as like the sensitive, good-natured dude that I am?
Why can't I be an Asian twink painted up like a geisha?
That's exactly correct. But yes, they meet up with Razor and Blade. Razor and Blade are actually about to sell out, and they don't want anything to do with them.
Yeah.
Which is barely a moment, like a line when that happens, and then they're like, okay, never mind, we'll help you. And they said that we have to get the hackers of the world to unite because the Gibson is just so powerful. We need all the hackers off of planet Earth, which is where the metaphor between me singing the Hack the Planet, Captain Planet metaphor becomes almost too accurate to the film. But the hackers, our hacker gang lines up in a bunch of phone booths. And
Grand Central Station.
In Grand Central Station, they jack into the digital world.
Oh, they fucking jack into the metaverse.
Dade is like wearing a Nintendo Super Scope like head.
No,
he's got his Google Glass all set up.
No.
And this is where the 2001 inspiration is very evident as they really enter like a huge huge psychedelic starfield. At one point, when they're click-clacking away on the keyboards, they have the phone booths that they're in actually rotating and like spiraling through the scene in this weird collage of images. And they start unloading every virus they can at the Gibson to try and take down its defenses so Crash can get in.
Rubella.
Yeah.
I don't know what is a virus and what's bacteria.
COVID.
Polio.
Yes.
The cold. Boogie woogie fever.
But no, they're throwing a virus based on Cookie Monster. They're throwing in a zero bug, a rabbit flu. And at the moment when all seems lost, they get the call from Razor.
Oh, they get the fucking Avengers moment where it's like, on your left.
Razorblade calls in on your left, and and all the hackers come in to Bombay.
Here, E-Bombay.
E-Bombay, I'm sorry.
Actually, I don't. That's what they said to Muhammad Ali when he came to Zaire. So it might not be the right thing. Sorry for correcting you.
That's all right. I don't know what I'm
saying. Why the fuck did they wait? Like, why would they not, like, aside from cinematic?
They were only calling every hacker in the world.
True.
Because here's the thing. You only have, like, this window when you're attacking the Gibson. There's only, like, 5 viable minutes where everybody can get in there.
That's another thing. They found out when the Da Vinci is going to pull the trigger, so they need to get in there before that happens. So they were on a deadline. They had to jump in before they had the rest of the crew.
And like when you say get in there before it happens, you mean minutes. They could have done this sooner, presumably.
Yeah.
But
yes, yeah. No,
but that's not hacking enough.
That's
Steven.
true. That's true.
I just wish there were more scenes in this movie of people doing sweet skateboard tricks in a half pipe or a bowl or a pool or something and just going hacking as they did them. That's my dream movie.
This is totally hacking, you guys.
Hacking this grind.
I want the dialogue in this movie to come off as just as dated as 1960s Teen Titans comics.
Sure.
They're yelling out all this stuff, and yes, Margot is in the back yelling out every time someone says anything, no matter how simplistic. What is he saying? Just like,
speak English.
What?
You're Italian, because like, I'm Lorraine Bracco.
We're about to give the computer brain cancer. Cancer? Rabbits? Cookie Monster? What's going on?
Poor Lorraine Bracco.
Yeah.
I'm sure she did not understand a single thing in this script. And she was just like, the star of Short Circuit 2, Fisher Stevens, sign me up.
That's exactly what she was thinking. She was like,
I get to meet Fisher Stevens.
It's like she heard a movie about a gang of youths, and Fisher Stevens was there, and she assumed that we were finally getting the Los Locos spinoff that we've all been praying for all these years.
Bring this on home.
Yes. Okay. So they find the file. At the last minute, Crash is knocked out of the system. So Joey, our protagonist all along, has to be the one to go in and copy that garbage file. They copy it. They stop the Da Vinci. They crash the Gibson. Da Vinci has a Ghostbusters moment where he screams and his face is torn apart.
I'm glad Fisher Stevens took the time to program that.
Yes.
Thank God. He was like,
just in case somebody gets this, I want them to be rewarded with a game over screen.
we need a fail safe. Like, I'm not Bethesda. I'm not going to put out an incomplete product.
Yeah. No. He's not that evil. But yeah. So, but Crash is. Jumping around my notes. Okay. So
I just want to mention my note.
Okay.
Which I feel is super important.
Yes.
And I thought this many times during the film, but here I thought it the most.
Yeah.
Just the sentiment of, oh yeah, we hacking. We hacking. Oh yeah, we hacking so hard.
I can hear Matthew Lillard saying it. So we hacking so hard.
And as we go to hackers all over the globe, there aren't empty cans of Jolt Cola. There aren't mountains of like put out cigarette butts. They're all like individuals of like education and refinement. They're like typing from like geisha bars.
Yes. It really looks like they're cutting to all the other 00 agents in the world. But yes, so they're able to crash the Gibson, stop the Da Vinci, copy it down onto their disk, and as they're leaving their booths, just right then is when the FBI shows up, and they are all arrested, with the exception of serial killer who had gone to the food court to get supplies. They're dragged away, and Crash has just enough time to throw the disc in a garbage can. He gives a verbal cue to serial killer who he sees in the crowd as they're being dragged away, and then yells at them to hack the planet in the most iconic scene in this movie, the only scene that I'd seen before of Crash being dragged away by the cops yelling, hack the planet, and Matthew Lillard takes up the call. And I wanted the movie to end right there, but with the whole crowd just taking up the chant of hack the planet, hack the planet, hack the planet.
It's like the John Wickerverse where everyone's an assassin, but everyone's a hacker.
No, I want it to be the Attica of the 90s. I want it to just like everybody just like hack the planet, and then it cuts to, and then hack the cup. But then, like, it would fade to the credits, but before the credits, you just have the Hacker Manifesto on the screen, and like, and they still took the fall for it, even though.
Yeah.
But we have a happier ending where they're all in prison, but Serial does find the disc, brings it to the Pirate Signal TV station, and broadcasts it to the world, saying that he feels like God.
Here's a question. Why didn't they do the same thing with the Plague's blackmail of Crash's mother?
Oh, and just like say like, hey, he was also planning on doing this.
The only answer I got for that is that they're using like razor and blades machines, so I'm guessing in their own petty, inscrutable reasons, they thought this was worthy of airtime. The other stuff wasn't.
I'm just saying, like 3 days before. Why weren't they like, hey, we're getting pressure from this corporate goon who's trying to blackmail my mother. Why don't I expose this now?
They were too distracted by their far more important prank war.
True.
That was much more important. As we know, because the movie knows that all this stuff aside, what we really want to know is, did they ever go on that date? And the answer is yes. They do go on the date. Crash and Burn go on the date. Burn wears a dress. This isn't something that she's doing as a thank you to him. They lied to her and told her that she lost the bet because they thought that Crash would never be able to get a date with anyone if this didn't work out.
That's cool.
Sure, that'll show her, I guess.
That'll teach you to be a woman.
Yeah, it's okay. We established she's had weird sex dreams, so it's all fine.
That's true. We didn't get into the weird dreams. Yeah, you guys can check that out yourself.
Yeah, you can check that out if you really want to. And then we cut, and then the movie ends with them making out in a pool that's on a roof.
Well, hold on. We get a bit where the Plague is fleeing.
Yes.
And for whatever reason, the Secret Service wait until the plane is in the air to arrest him.
And continuing my idea of him being a character who somehow walked off the set of SNL, he's wearing the goofiest fake beard in the world in order to escape.
Fisher Stevens was starting to put on the shoe polish, and they were like, no, we have a beard
No. Anything but that, Fisher Stevens, please. And then, so he gets away, and then we cut to the date. They make out in the swimming pool and talk it out like,
Only assume they got married. She got pregnant. They became shills for Google.
Right. Yep. That's exactly what happened.
Steven, is there anything else you would like to say about Hackers?
I think it is a deeply embarrassing movie. I think that it is everything that is wrong and magical and just mind-boggling about the 90s all rolled up into one compact little package.
You can't get the good parts of the 90s without the cringe parts of the 90s.
The best part of 90s are the cringe parts of the 90s.
Right. So this has the whole package. Any other thoughts, Brad?
No.
I think we've definitely left it all out on the
I think so.
All right, well, thanks.
Well, hold on. One last thing.
Oh, okay.
I want Steven to choose our next movie. Now, it's not a blind draw. I'm going to give you some choices.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We decided to start a new thing where our guests will choose what movie we watch next.
Next, I'm going to give you 3 choices.
Okay.
You can choose from Freeway 2, Confessions of a Trick Baby. What was the other one? It was Titane. Are you familiar with Titane?
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay. Won the Palme d'Or last year's con by the same woman who did Raw.
Okay.
It's a trip, so I don't want to say too much. But it's called Titane. And the third one was Bad Biology, Frank Henenlotter's last movie.
The only one of those three I've seen is Bad Biology, and it's one of the most fucked up things I've ever beheld. So that is what I told you boys to do The Beast. I'm going to tell you guys to do Bad Biology.
Hey, we're going to make Billy watch Bad Biology.
Oh, fun. Oh, fun. What a day. What a lovely day.
All right. Thank you so much for being on, Steven. I wish you had talked more. I wish we weren't so steamrollery, but thank you so much.
Oh, I had fun. Like, I was like Wile E. Coyote. I got steamrolled, but it's all part of like the joy, the comedy of the experience.
All right.
Well, we definitely want you back on someday. Find another movie. Maybe we'll vibe with it a little bit better. But
I mean, the other movie that you were considering for this episode was Gremlins 2. So I guess we'll see if that one comes up in the future.
Well, the first Gremlins is a Christmas movie. I don't know that the second one is, but
is it?
It's a 4th of July movie, I think.
Oh my God! Okay,
well, we have coming for July,
coming this summer.
All right.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being on.
Thank you for being on. Thanks so very much for listening, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye.
All right, and you end recording.
Your liver's too clean, boy. I can smell it.